Chapter 1819. As early as 1 kilometer away from Uncle Xiang's sphere of influence, Wen Xiao had made a clear cross symbol on 3 consecutive trees. He believed that with Lin Ji's intelligence, he would be able to understand what this symbol represented. Of course, Wen Xiao didn't overestimate Lin Ji's intelligence. Lin Ge walked deeper in, and when he saw these 3 consecutive clear cross symbols, he very seriously stopped in his tracks. He carefully stroked the bark that the sharp knife had cut open. The cut was so fresh. Lin Ge realized that this was very likely a warning from Wen Xiao. It seemed like this was a dangerous forbidden area, or it could be said that this was a place that Wen Xiao himself wanted to come to. Lin Ge took a deep breath. He chose the tallest tree, and his body lightly leapt up. Taking advantage of the momentum, he stabbed his knife into the tree trunk. Then, he suddenly exerted force, and his entire body leapt high into the air, directly climbing up the branch of the tree. Lin Ji's body was as light as a butterfly, and he climbed up to the highest point of the giant tree in just a few steps. Apart from the rustling of the leaves, there were no other sounds in the forest. Lin Ge quietly hid on top of the giant tree, carefully observing everything that he could see. As the saying goes, the higher one stands, the further one can see. Everything within a kilometer radius could enter Lin Ji's range of observation. The entire forest seemed exceptionally quiet. Only a light breeze would blow, and the leaves at the top of the forest would sway slightly. There was no sign of life anywhere else. The quieter it was, the more Lin Ge felt that there was a problem. Although he didn't have much trust in Wen Xiao, he still felt that Wen Xiao wouldn't make these 3 symbols for no reason. If Lin Ge couldn't find a problem, then it could only mean that these symbols weren't made by Wen Xiao. That meant there were other people in this place? If that was the case, Lin Ge would instead feel that it was even more dangerous. But thinking about it carefully, apart from them, who else would be so crazy as to wander around this terrifying primitive forest in the middle of the night? Who knew what they could run into in this place? If it was in the past, they would definitely encounter many ferocious beasts in a single night. But now that the mercenary group had occupied the territories of too many wild beasts, and these wild beasts were no match for the well-equipped mercenaries. Over time, the number of wild beasts decreased. Some of them became delicacies on the mercenaries' plate, and some of them escaped from the nature that they relied on for survival. The biological chain of this primeval forest had also been severely damaged due to the appearance of humans. Fortunately, these mercenaries were scarier than the beasts at the top of the food chain. There was no animal they didn't dare to eat, so the balance of the food chain didn't seem to be broken. In any case, because of the existence of these humans, animals could not reproduce in large numbers. Lin Ge patiently observed for a whole hour on the tree trunk. Finally, his efforts paid off. He saw a few green shadows trembling about a kilometer away. When those shadows reached a certain place, a few more shadows trembled and hurriedly left, disappearing from Lin Ji's sight. At this time, Lin Ge suddenly understood. Those few green shadows quickly calmed down and hid in the forest. There were no more movements. This was the hidden sniper on duty again. Who? Lin Ge sucked in a breath of cold air. Who in the world was this? They actually had such a large force that they could have a sniper hide in one place for the whole night. What a big deal! It seemed that he had already reached the edge of a very powerful mercenary group's sphere of influence. No wonder Wen Xiao gave him 3 consecutive crosses as a hint. If it wasn't for these 3 crosses, Lin Ge would definitely have snuck in and entered the sniper's shooting range. At that time, his little life would probably be lost. But Lin Ge couldn't understand one thing. Why would Wen Xiao come to such a place with such a clear goal? Along the way, Lin Ge definitely didn't hear any gunshots. This meant that even if Wen Xiao intruded into this sphere of influence, he wasn't shot to death. Yes, he was one-eyed. He was also a famous person in this place. He definitely had his own way. Presumably, Wen Xiao had already come into contact with the mercenary group leader in this sphere of influence. Lin Ge rubbed his temples. Compared to Wen Xiao, it seemed that he had a harder time in this place. No matter how bad Wen Xiao was, his one-eyed reputation was sufficiently well known. Even if someone had their eyes on him, they wouldn't dare to make a move to kill him. But Lin Gu was different. In this place where even birds didn't shit, who would recognize him, Lin Gu? If he was targeted, he might just be sent a bullet. As the saying goes, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to defend against a stab in the dark. Just how many snipers were there in this land? Lin Gu didn't even dare to think about it. His head was still covered in cold sweat. He really didn't know how he had walked all the way to this place. Who knew if he had already passed through the gates of hell a few times? Lin Gu tried his best to calm himself down in the tree. He needed to think of a way to avoid these people. Other than discovering them in time, if they wanted to invade, he would need to put in more effort. As long as he was careful enough, he would be able to detect the presence of danger in time and use the geographical situation to avoid them. Sneaking in was not impossible. Soon, Lin Gu strengthened his confidence. He quickly slid down the giant tree and carved a small sign of a restricted area. He believed that Su Yun would definitely follow the clues he left behind and come here. He also wanted to let Su Yun know clearly how dangerous this place was. Compared to Lin Gu, who was treading on thin ice, Wen Xiao seemed to be more relaxed. But in fact, the risk he faced was even greater. Uncle Xiong was a smiling tiger. Everyone knew this. He seemed to be easy to get along with on normal days, but once he got angry, he would definitely be ruthless. He was scarier than anyone else. Wen Xiao was very clear about his current status and situation. He didn't have the power to be on the same level as Uncle Xiong. He could only lower himself as much as possible and not provoke Uncle Xiong's ruthlessness. This would allow him to live a little longer. Uncle Xiong really didn't expect that the first news he heard when he opened his eyes in the morning would be such good news. After all, he was racking his brains to think of a way to arrange for people to go to Huaxia and get Wen Xiao out. Now, Wen Xiao had appeared in his territory. Was this happiness that came too suddenly, or was it a case of a weasel paying a visit to a chicken? Uncle Xiong's inner world was actually very conflicted. He had never made any wrong judgments in his life, but this time, he was still not sure how he should face this matter. But since Wen Xiao was here, of course, he had to meet him personally. The authenticity of the secret he saw in Vulture's mailbox could only be verified by Wen Xiao. After all, Uncle Xiong still couldn't confirm whether the secret in Vulture's mailbox was real or fake. He wanted to find Wen Xiao so that he could make a judgment on this matter. He had searched high and low for it, only to find it by chance. Naturally, Uncle Xiong was very happy that Wen Xiao came to him. Other than Uncle Xiong, there was another person who was also very happy, and that was Black Dog Barton. Black Dog Barton had only admired a few people in his life, and Wen Xiao was one of them. Wen Xiao was definitely the person he admired the most. If Wen Xiao had not left the mercenary circle to go to Huaxia, Barton would never have chosen to join Uncle Xiong's organization. Uncle Xiong also knew that Barton admired Wen Xiao. Since Wen Xiao was here, how could he not let Barton come out to meet him? Soon, Wen Xiao was led to where Uncle Xiong was by his subordinates. Uncle Xiong had also called his 3 tigers and Black Dog Barton over. As for Clark, forget about it. After all, Wen Xiao had done many things to Night Leopard's people in the past, and Clark did not have a good impression of One-Eyed. This was because Clark had always found Barton to be an eyesore. If it weren't for Uncle Xiong's status, the two of them would have already fought. It couldn't be helped. It was normal for people from different mercenary groups to have some conflicts. However, Uncle Xiong was confident that the two of them would become a force sooner or later. Originally, his 3 tigers didn't like each other, but now they had become a force. Since Uncle Xiong had the courage to use people, he also had his way of tormenting people. Chapter 1820. When Wen Xiao appeared in front of everyone, Barton was so excited that he almost rushed up to him. However, due to Uncle Xiong's presence, he held back his impulse. After all, he had already changed his allegiance to Uncle Xiong. If he continued to treat Wen Xiao as his master, Uncle Xiong would definitely feel unhappy. This was definitely a very serious taboo in the mercenary circle. Wen Xiao also understood this taboo, so when he saw Barton, he only played it down. He also didn't want his old subordinate to offend Uncle Xiang because of his existence. After all, he was now Uncle Xiang's subordinate and had nothing to do with him. If he didn't know this, he would have wasted his time in the mercenary circle. One Eye, Ayaya, long time no see. You ran away without a word. This is a great loss to our mercenary group. Uncle Xiang walked forward with a smile as if he was treating a junior that he hadn't seen for a long time. He reached out and squeezed Wen Zhao's shoulder. Not bad. Your body is very strong. How could you quit just like that? Wen Zhao smiled embarrassedly. Uncle Xiang, I'm not afraid that you will laugh at me. With my level, I really don't think I'm suitable for this job. Did I do anything wrong to Uncle Xiang in the past? I hope Uncle Xiang can forgive me. Please don't lower yourself to the same level as a junior. What are you talking about? Who doesn't know that One Eye is a dark horse? Uncle Xiang said, I have to thank you for giving me face to eat now. If you want to rise to the top, it's very easy to pull me down, isn't it? Ha ha, you are giving me face. Although I'm old, I'm not stupid. Uncle Xiang, you are laughing at me. Wen Zhao laughed out loud. With you around, how would I dare to act rashly? Back then, the only reason I was able to make a living in this circle was because you, Uncle Xiang, turned a blind eye and gave me a way out. Even though I, the one-eyed man, am slow, I can still see through this. Thank you for your guidance, Uncle Xiang. Both of them were complimenting each other, but they didn't make the other feel disgusted at all. After all, what they said was the truth. It was just a little exaggerated, but they didn't go against the truth. What's wrong? Are your hands itching again after returning to Huaxia? Uncle Xiang said, One-eyed, if you want to come back and start anew, I will definitely be the first to support you. Don't worry, whether you want territory or manpower, Uncle Xiang has them all. With that, Uncle Xiang waved at Barton. Black Dog, come here. Barton's heart skipped a beat. He walked straight to Uncle Xiang's side and said in a low voice, Uncle Xiang, what are your orders? If One-eyed wants to start afresh, you'll go and help him. Uncle Xiang said, I'm very clear about the relationship between the two of you. A gentleman doesn't steal someone else's love. He likes to fulfill someone else's beauty. Although you haven't been with me for long, I know you well. You're a man who pays attention to details. Barton's eyes lit up when he heard this. When he looked at Wan Zhao excitedly, he saw a trace of unease in Wan Zhao's eyes. Barton quickly realized that this might just be a formality. Mercenaries were most afraid of disloyalty. Wan Zhao was afraid that Barton would reveal something, so he kept his brows furrowed. When Barton saw Wan Zhao's expression, he immediately said to Uncle Xiang with a serious face, Uncle Xiang, I'm already loyal to you. Please don't make fun of me. Ha ha ha, Black Dog is getting serious. Uncle Xiang laughed heartily and patted Barton on the shoulder. I really don't want to give a talent like you to others. But, you're One-eyed's man. If One-eyed wants to come back and start afresh, can you really just stand by and watch? Barton fell silent. He didn't know how to answer this question. Uncle Xiang, Black Dog is a loyal person. If I really want to start afresh, I believe he'll really help me. Wen Zhao suddenly spoke up to help Barton. It's just that I really don't have that intention right now, so Black Dog will still only be loyal to you. Uncle Xiang was very satisfied with this answer. He nodded. Yes, I also believe that Black Dog is a loyal person. If he doesn't even help you, I really don't dare to put him in an important position. Ha 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 ha, I like loyal people like him. He's very particular. There were two different opinions in one sentence. If Wan Zhao hadn't made it clear that he wouldn't start afresh, which made Uncle Xiang feel that Black Dog would help him, Uncle Xiang probably wouldn't have been in the mood to laugh. Barton stood there without saying a word. He didn't know what to say, and he didn't dare to speak carelessly. He was afraid that if he said something wrong, it would cause big trouble. Black Dog, follow Uncle Xiang well. Uncle Xiang won't mistreat you. Wen Zhao said calmly. Barton nodded desperately. He knew very well that Wen Zhao was the one who treated him well. Everyone else was just bull**ting. Even if Uncle Xiang treated him well, he wouldn't treat him as a friend. He would only treat him as a pawn in his hands. It was because he was useful and had great destructive power that Uncle Xiang treated him well. One-eyed, if you didn't come back to start afresh, then what's the big deal? Uncle Xiang smiled and changed the topic. Is there anything else that an old man like me can help you with? Uncle Xiang, it was really a close call for me to come back alive this time. Other than you, I can't find a second person that I can trust. Wen Xiao said, I came here to find a way out, a safe haven, to lie low for a while. Uncle Xiang smiled but didn't say anything. He tried to figure out the meaning of Wen Zhao's words, but he still couldn't figure it out. There's no way out for you in Huaxia? One-eyed, you must be joking. Could it be that you've gotten into some big trouble in the mainland? Faced with Uncle Xiang's probing, Wen Xiao was already prepared. Vulture died in Huaxia. Uncle Xiang, have you heard about it? Vulture died in Huaxia. Uncle Xiang exclaimed in shock. Barton, who was standing beside Uncle Xiang, was slightly startled. He was a little worried because Uncle Xiang clearly knew that Vulture was dead, but he still pretended to be surprised. This was obviously a lie. However, due to his position, Barton couldn't say anything. He could only stand aside quietly. After saying this, Uncle Xiang had been observing Barton's reaction. If he wasn't loyal to him but one-eyed, he would definitely have reacted. Fortunately, he was satisfied with this result. Barton didn't react at all. Wen Xiao could only half believe Uncle Xiang's words. Uncle Xiang, this is such a big thing. Have you really not heard about it? Then your spies in Huaxia are really useless. I think it's necessary to change 2 of them. Uncle Xiang nodded and agreed with Wen Xiao. Yes, I think it's necessary. It's such a big thing, but I didn't hear about it at all. I've raised a bunch of freeloaders. Humph. Barton still didn't say a word about Uncle Xiang's blatant lying. He didn't know if Uncle Xiang was deliberately lying to Wen Xiao or testing him. Barton struggled for a long time in his heart. In the end, he decided to keep quiet. He knew that if he said something wrong, not only would he be unable to protect himself, but he might also implicate Wen Xiao. Sometimes, silence was golden. Wen Xiao was the one who told Barton this. Therefore, Barton chose to remain silent. He believed that Wen Xiao could tell whether Uncle Xiang was telling the truth or not. No matter what, no matter whether he appeared to be Uncle Xiang's man or not, in the depths of his heart, he was still on Wen Zhao's side. Of course, Uncle Xiang was also very clear about Barton's position. No matter how well-behaved Barton was on the surface, he knew very well that if he had to choose between him and Wen Xiao, Barton would choose Wen Xiao without hesitation at the most crucial moment. Therefore, as long as Wen Xiao was around, Uncle Xiang couldn't let Barton participate in this secret. If he was involved, he would definitely be the one who ruined it. Chapter 1821. I am really in a rush today. Uncle Xiang took a deep breath and said, If I knew One-Eyed Brotherhood would come at this time, I would have postponed that matter and let Black Dog accompany you. But I had already promised him. If I continue to postpone it, I will be going back on my words. Barton paused for a while. He did not know what Uncle Xiang was talking about and did not remember Uncle Xiang arranging something for him to do today. Black Dog, Mr. Feng wants to send something to the Middle East. The situation in the Middle East is chaotic now, and he wants an elite team to protect him. That's why he contacted me. Uncle Xiang said. I had wanted to arrange for someone else to go, but Mr. Feng wanted you. He asked me to let you lead the team. He does not trust anyone else. Uncle Xiang, are you talking about that Mr. Feng who is developing special weapons? Barton was surprised. This Mr. Feng did not have any connections with him. Why did he have to look for him? Also, his reputation as Black Dog was not the most famous in Uncle Xiang's eyes. Ding Kai, Jing Chu, and Tian Lu, these 3 tigers, were more famous than him by a few times. Mr. Feng should be asking for the few of them. Why did he ask for Barton? Uncle Xiong nodded. Yes. That's him. You should know that he is a weird person. He will not change his mind once he has decided on something. Since he has chosen you, then I have no choice. But Barton really didn't want to go. Wan Shao had already left for a while and had just returned. He really wanted to stay here and be responsible for accompanying Wan Shao. Moreover, if anything happened, he could secretly tell Wan Shao. If he left, Wan Shao wouldn't even have someone to hear the truth from. Since you want to eat Uncle Xiong's food, you have to solve Uncle Xiong's problem. Wan Shao smiled. Black Dog, why are you still so wishy-washy? I'm afraid Uncle Xiong doesn't like wishy-washy people. Just do what you're told. That's what you should do with your status. Barton paused for a while and nodded. Uncle Xiong, I will go and prepare now. I will bring a team of men to meet Mr. Feng. Okay. Be careful on the way. Normally, the things that Boss Feng wanted to escort were not simple things. You should be very clear. Don't make any mistakes. Uncle Xiong said indifferently, once there's a mistake, it'll be irreparable. Yes. Barton accepted the order. Since that was the case, he couldn't do what he wanted to do. He nodded to Wan Shao as a farewell. After Barton left, Uncle Xiong stopped smiling and said seriously, I wonder what Mr. Feng is researching this time. It's too scary. Is it that Mr. Feng who always comes up with weird ideas? Wan Shao asked. That's right. Uncle Xiong nodded. That guy is not simple. He used to be a scientific researcher with a high status in the United States. The research he did was very scary. Genetic weapons, climate weapons. These ideas were all developed by those crazy scientists. I really don't know if these people are contributing to society's progress or making society more dangerous. Wan Shao sneered. That's right. Thinking back to the terrifying virus that swept Huaxia more than 10 years ago, the final blame was placed on an animal called the civets. However, was this matter really that simple? At that time, many people suspected that this was a genetic weapon developed by the United States and conducted a silent experiment in Huaxia. As time passed, it was basically confirmed that the United States and other Western hegemonic countries launched a large-scale genetic weapon attack on Huaxia in order to achieve their goal of global hegemony, maintain their position as world hegemons, attack Huaxia's economy, and prevent Huaxia from becoming a world economic powerhouse. Perhaps until today, many people still didn't understand what a genetic weapon was. It was actually a new type of biological warfare agent developed using genetic engineering technology. It was another development direction of modern new concept weapons. The SARS virus that caused huge physical and mental damage to the people of Huaxia back then was a genetic weapon. The SARS virus was a mixture of the measles virus and the mumps virus, and this kind of mixed virus could only be cultivated in a laboratory. It was impossible for it to occur in the natural environment. Back then, when the evil 731 bacteria unit in Japan invaded Huaxia, the results and records of the bacteria experiments done by the people of Huaxia were all controlled by the United States. A large part of the development of genetic weapons also originated from this thing. This was because genetic weapons used advanced genetic engineering technology. Using a method similar to engineering design, through genetic recombination according to people's needs, genes that could resist ordinary vaccines or drugs were inserted into some pathogenic bacteria or viruses, or pathogenic genes were inserted into some microorganisms that were not pathogenic to create biological weapons. Genetic weapons could achieve the artificial design and synthesis of organisms or viruses that did not exist in nature. It could change the genetic material of non-pathogenic microorganisms, causing them to produce pathogenic bacteria with significant resistance to drugs. Using the differences in the biochemical characteristics of humans, this pathogenic bacteria would only have pathogenic effects on people with certain genetic characteristics, thus selectively eliminating the enemy's effective forces. In other words, genetic weapons could only target a certain kind of people, such as Huaxia. A long time ago, someone in the United States said that the Earth only needed 20% of the current population. This statement was aimed at the Asian countries. Huaxia and India together accounted for almost 50% of the Earth's population. If the United States wanted to do something to eliminate the human race, genetic weapons were undoubtedly the best choice. In fact, this was not the most terrifying thing. There was an even more terrifying weather weapon. Remember the snow disaster during the Olympic Games? Almost half of Huaxia had a huge snowstorm. Hundreds of millions of people were affected, and the direct economic losses were even more terrifying. Was it a natural disaster or an attack by a weather weapon? Of course, this was only a guess. However, there was no way to avoid suspicion. Many places that had not snowed for decades suddenly encountered such a crisis. Also, why was it only Huaxia that encountered a snow disaster? Why did Japan not encounter such a natural disaster? Why did the countries around Huaxia that had a good relationship with the United States not encounter such a natural disaster? Therefore, it was hard to explain why the Asian region was an intersection of natural disaster zones. Because Huaxia was not the only country in the Asian region. There were many other countries in Southeast Asia. In short, many modern new weapons and new types of warfare could be carried out unknowingly. People might not even realize it. And the people who developed these things were those perverted scientists. This Mr. Fong that Uncle Xiong mentioned was a typical example of a perverted scientist. As for why he left the United States and hid in such a place to conduct his own research, no one knew. But many people knew that the things he developed could be sold at a very high price in the Middle East. Also, there was no lack of genetic weapons, virus weapons, and the like. It could be said that Mr. Fong was a very scary person. Mr. Fong should be the public enemy of the entire human race. Wen Xiao said calmly, "Uncle Xiong, I'm afraid you are not doing him any favors. I'm not working for him. I'm working for money." Uncle Xiong was very open-minded. "I have no choice. I have so many people under me. I can't let my brothers go hungry. As long as Mr. Fong offers a suitable price, why should I not do it? Even if I don't do it, he will find someone else to do it. He will always give out those things that harm the entire human race. Ha ha ha. Let's put it another way. This can be called, if I don't go to hell, who will go to hell? It's quite noble." Wen Xiao put on a fake smile and curled the corners of his mouth. These evils should really be killed. Chapter 1822. That's an outsider's business. One Eye, shouldn't we talk about our own business now? You came all the way here, there must be something important, right? Uncle Xiong narrowed his eyes. He really wanted to know how Wen Xiao would respond to his questions. "Uncle Xiong, I won't hide it from you. Something big happened in Huaxia this time." Wen Xiao looked around as he spoke. He looked at the three tigers under Uncle Xiong and hesitated. Uncle Xiong smiled and gestured for everyone to leave. However, his subordinates were hesitant when they thought about how dangerous one-eyed Wen Xiao was. If he and Uncle Xiong were left alone in the room and something happened, they would not be able to rush to the scene in time to save the situation. Wen Xiao shook his head lightly and said, "Looks like Uncle Xiong's men don't trust me that much. Actually, I really don't have anything to suspect. Since I chose to come here, it means that I trust Uncle Xiong. If I'm stupid enough to do anything, it's really not worth it. If I dare to do anything to Uncle Xiong, I definitely won't be able to leave here alive. Hee, since I've gone through so much trouble to escape from China and cross the border through the minefield, I don't intend to take my life lightly." Did you hear that? One Eye is such a sincere person. You bunch of bastards, I've wasted my time educating you. Uncle Xiong shook his head helplessly. Go, 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 all of you go. Since Brother One Eye trusts me with something important, it means that he thinks highly of me. You guys actually don't know what's good for you? Hearing Uncle Xiong's words, his three tigers all left and chased away the people outside the door. They left Uncle Xiong's room far away. Everyone knew that One Eye had a secret to speak with Uncle Xiong alone. It wouldn't be good for anyone outside to hear. When it came to secrets, the less one knew, the safer it was. As mercenaries, they all knew this very well. They wouldn't listen to what they shouldn't listen to, ask what they shouldn't ask, say what they shouldn't say, and see what they shouldn't see. Only in this way could they gain more trust and live longer in this dangerous situation. Wen Xiao only breathed a sigh of relief when all the footsteps were far away. Uncle Xiang looked at Wen Xiao expectantly, hoping that what Wen Xiao said would not disappoint him. Uncle Xiang was the kind of person who knew what he wanted to know and what he wanted to get. Uncle Xiang, I came back to Huaxia this time to take revenge for what happened back then. I want to kill the person who forced me to this point, Wen Xiao said calmly. What was the result? Have you achieved it? Uncle Xiang smiled. Wen Xiao shook his head. No, I wasn't his match and was directly crippled by him. He's completely crippled. He doesn't even have the ability to fight back. But, you look fine now. Uncle Xiang pretended to be surprised. Wen Xiao took a deep breath. I'm afraid you wouldn't believe me even if I told you how bad my situation was at that time. At that time, Vulture went to Huaxia to find me. He could have killed me in the hospital with just a flick of his finger. But he didn't do that. He wanted to see me suffer before dying. Uncle Xiang touched his chin. This is indeed Vulture's style of doing things. But why was he the one who died in the end and not you? This world is really amazing. There was something that could cure my condition, and Vulture knew about this secret. Wen Xiao said, Vulture tried to steal the magical treasure that could cure me, but he was killed by the Huaxia police. Uncle Xiang's laughter was a little cold. Although I'm old, I'm not stupid. With the ability of the Huaxia police, I'm afraid they don't have the ability to kill Vulture. There was a special force that joined in. Wen Xiao explained, it was impossible to rely on the police alone, but with the addition of special forces, Vulture was no match at all. There are too many experts in Huaxia. You know that even if I don't say it. Uncle Xiang nodded. This made it more realistic. Vulture definitely couldn't have died in the hands of ordinary police. There must have been an expert, and an extraordinary one at that, to be able to kill him. Vulture couldn't take away the divine item, and I was saved. Wen Xiao said, so I, who had lost all my martial arts, regained my strength. As he spoke, Wen Xiao clenched his fists. He said all this to test whether Uncle Xiang was the one who cracked Vulture's email. There's such a treasure in the world? Uncle Xiang shook his head. He didn't believe Wen Xiao at all. Kid, don't make fun of an old man like me. Are you trying to make me happy by telling me such an imaginary story? Ha 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 ha, One-Eye, you don't seem to be so naughty in my impression. Wen Xiao looked helpless. Uncle Xiang, I'm really not joking. What I said is true. Otherwise, you see, I'm a cripple, and everything has recovered. No one knows whether you've become a cripple or not, Uncle Xiang said. Vulture knows. He knows that I've become a cripple. He can even stand in front of me arrogantly and do whatever he wants to me. I can't resist. Wen Xiao continued to exaggerate. Vulture knows everything. That's right, Vulture knows everything. He explained everything in the video he uploaded in the email. If Uncle Xiang was the one who cracked the email, he would know that this was true. Ha 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 ha. Uncle Xiang waved his hand. One-Eye, it's not good for you to use a dead person as a cover. Anyway, the dead can't testify. Except for him, no one can prove how difficult your situation was at that time. Wen Xiao was a little confused. It seemed that Uncle Xiang really didn't know anything about all this. Well, Uncle Xiang, since you don't believe me, I won't say more. Don't continue. Tell me your purpose. Uncle Xiang said, I believe you. After all, you've come to my door. If there's anything, whether I can help or not, just say what you need to say. Wen Xiao shook his head. It's useless to say more. Uncle Xiang still wanted to say something, but he stopped. He smiled faintly and changed the topic. It's not easy for you to cross the border. It's time for you to have a good rest. I'll arrange a room for you. You can have a comfortable hot bath. It's not too late to talk about it after you've washed off your fatigue. Uncle Xiang, thank you for your hospitality. Wen Xiao said, I'm just a guy who has nothing now. I have nothing to repay you. If you need anything, just tell me. One-Eye, am definitely not the kind of person who freeloads. Ha ha, of course I know you, kid. Uncle Xiong said, but I like guys like you. I treat you as a friend. If you say this, you're treating me as an outsider. I met you because I treat you as a friend, not because I want you to do things for me. Wen Xiao smiled embarrassedly. Okay, go and have a rest. I'll ask someone to prepare a welcome party for you. Have a drink with me later as a way of thanking me, okay? Uncle Xiong said with a laugh. Wen Xiao cupped his fists and said, I can't thank you enough. I'm ashamed to accept Uncle Xiong's hospitality. Brat, you're treating me as an outsider. Uncle Xiong stood up and opened the door. He shouted outside, Someone, take my guest to his room to rest. Get 2 soft and slender girls to serve my guest while he bathes. Wen Xiao thanked him as he refused, but Uncle Xiong still arranged 2 girls to scrub Wen Xiao's back. Wen Xiao knew that a large part of this was to monitor him, so he didn't refuse. Soaking in the warm wooden bathtub, Wen Xiao began to review his conversation with Uncle Xiong, trying to find some useful clues. Chapter 1823. From Wen Zhao's point of view, after talking so much with Uncle Xiong's reaction clearly showed that he didn't know anything about this secret. When he mentioned the mysterious treasure that could heal him in a short time, Uncle Xiong didn't have much of a reaction. Perhaps he really didn't know anything. But thinking about it carefully, Wen Xiao felt that something wasn't right. Even a person who didn't know anything would be surprised to hear that there was such a treasure in the world, right? At the very least, he would show a shocked expression. But Uncle Xiong didn't. He calmly said that he didn't believe it. With Uncle Xiong's life experience, it was impossible for him to not know about the existence of Pa Bo Yu. This kind of miraculous item that could allow one's martial cultivation to recover in a short period of time, even if it only existed in legends, Uncle Xiong must be very clear that this item definitely existed. When Wen Xiao mentioned this, wouldn't Uncle Xiong have thought of it? Or even if he thought of it, he would pretend that he didn't know. If that was the case, then Wen Xiao couldn't help but suspect that Uncle Xiong already knew about the secret in the video. Some things were really more terrifying the more he thought about it. Wen Xiao already couldn't make a definite judgment. He didn't know if he could trust Uncle Xiong. He was regretting his initial decision. After all, an old fox like Uncle Xiong wouldn't reveal any flaws in a psychological battle. From the start, Wen Xiao seemed to have made the wrong choice. To make a move on this old fox who was hard to see through, he really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. All of this really made it too difficult for him to make a decision. If he made a wrong judgment, the result would definitely be very bad. And now, there was always someone beside Wen Xiao. Although Uncle Xiong's decision seemed to be well-intentioned, Wen Xiao had no way of contacting Lin Gu. He didn't know what Lin Ji's situation was now, and he couldn't tell Lin Gu about his situation. If Lin Gu knew that Wen Xiao was taking a hot bath and had 2 pretty girls helping him scrub his back, he would definitely curse Wen Zhao's 18 generations of ancestors. Lin Gu was in a miserable state now. He was hiding in the mud alone, not daring to say a word. His clothes were still wet, and it was drizzling. Lin Gu didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the harsh environment. Fortunately, he had endured a lot of these hardships during his previous training. Otherwise, he would have collapsed long ago. Lin Gu couldn't care less about the mud on his body and the gloomy weather. He had to be more careful, more cautious, and more cautious. He absolutely couldn't let himself be exposed. He had to do his best to sneak in. Hard work paid off. Lin Gu had already quietly passed through the sniper's surveillance range. At the bottom of a mountain, Lin Ji's eyes lit up when he saw a gurgling stream. He really needed to wash off the mud on his body. Otherwise, it would be inconvenient for him to move around. Fortunately, God gave him face. After a few drops of rain fell, the weather suddenly became hot and dry. Lin Gu quickly washed his clothes and found a branch to dry them. Soon they were dry. The improved weather made Lin Ji's mood a lot better, but Wen Xiao still hadn't gotten in touch with him, which made him a little uncertain. Could it be that this guy still hadn't mixed in with the mercenary group? He said that as long as he got in touch with the people of the local mercenary group, he would inform him as soon as he met them. Phew, this guy is really unreliable. Lin Gu cursed in his heart. This also made Lin Gu suspicious. Who knew if Wen Xiao was in cahoots with these mercenaries? If they were in cahoots, then what should he do? Thinking of this, Lin Gu suddenly felt that his situation was quite dangerous. If Wen Xiao betrayed him, then he would immediately become the target of the local mercenaries. In such a large forest, he didn't even know how many people there were. If he was really attacked, then he really wouldn't even have the chance to escape. The more Lin Gu thought about it, the more he felt that Wen Xiao was unreliable. He quickly put on his clothes. He needed to find a place where he could hide for a long time, and it had to be a place where he had the advantage. If the situation went wrong, he wouldn't just sit there and wait to be captured. Lin Gu was the kind of person. Even if he was going to die, he would definitely drag a few people down with him. Killing one was enough. Killing two was a win. As long as he had this mentality, Lin Gu wouldn't feel afraid. Instead, he felt his blood boil. He didn't know that Wen Xiao was also having a headache about how to get in touch with him. Although his life was very good, he was still very sullen. Who knew when he would have the chance to be alone? Wen Xiao was also clear that Lin Gu didn't trust him. So if he couldn't get in touch with Lin Gu for too long, Lin Gu would definitely be suspicious of him. This was something that couldn't be avoided. It could be said that Wen Xiao's situation was worse than Lin Ji's. Although Lin Ji's living conditions were a little bad, at least he didn't suffer psychologically. Just as Lin Gu was trying to find a safe place to stay, his intuition told him that there was danger. Lin Gu didn't even think about it. He quickly ran up the nearest towering tree. The dense branches and leaves of the tree hid him, who was wearing a camouflage uniform, among the branches and leaves. Lin Gu was very patient. This could only mean that he had been raised well when he was young. He hid among the branches and leaves of the tree and didn't even pant for a full 20 minutes. And just 20 minutes later, a small mercenary group of 5 people passed by. These 5 people were talking and laughing. They were very happy along the way. They were talking about women, and there was probably no topic other than women that could make them laugh so brightly. Soon, the 5 people arrived at the huge tree Lin Gu was hiding under. Because the tree was really big, it was naturally cooler under the shade. The 5 people walked under the shade of the tree, took out the water bottle they carried with them, and gulped down a few mouthfuls of water. One of them even untied his belt and urinated. He used all his strength to shake a few times before pulling up his pants. It seemed that these people were quite tired. They squatted under the shade of the tree and closed their eyes to rest. Lin Gu was speechless. If these people stayed here for a long time, they would definitely notice that there was something wrong with the tree. What should he do then? Should he make a move or not? If he didn't make a move, he would be in trouble. If he was really captured by the mercenaries, he didn't know what would happen to him. If he made a move, he would alert the enemy. No matter who he offended, there would definitely be more mercenaries coming out to capture him. When that time came, Lin Gu really wouldn't be able to continue living in this forest. To put it bluntly, no matter what Lin Gu did now, the result would definitely be very bad. He could only hope that these people would leave early and not discover him. However, blessings don't come in pairs, and misfortune doesn't come singly. Just as Lin Gu was worried that he would be discovered by the people under the tree, a hissing sound came from behind him. Lin Gu turned around to take a look. A snake as thick as a wrist was staring at him. At that time, Lin Gu was stupefied. Was this trying to play with him to death? There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. What should he do? He was in a dilemma. Looking at how bright the color of the snake's skin was, Lin Gu could guarantee that it was 100% poisonous. Moreover, this snake was already in an attacking posture. Every time it hissed, it would directly bite him. When that time came, Lin Gu would definitely dodge or retaliate. It would definitely make a sound. Hee hee. The 5 mercenaries under the tree weren't idiots. With just a few rounds of bullets, Lin Ji's but would probably be turned into a die. What should he do now? Lin Gu wanted to cry. Right now, he could only pray that this snake brother wouldn't do anything. Endure it for a while longer. Endure it for a while before it bites me. Lin Gu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the snake. His hand had already silently pulled out a dagger. No matter what, his life was still the most important. If he had no other choice, he, Lin Gu, could do anything. Chapter 1824. Due to the climate in Southeast Asia, it was definitely a good place for poisonous snakes to live. Therefore, there were all kinds of poisonous snakes gathered here, such as king cobras, krite, silver-ringed snakes, sharp-snout vipers, white-lipped bamboo-leaf snakes, and so on. Southeast Asia had all kinds of poisonous snakes, and there were countless of them in this forest. And now, Lin Gu was facing a spotted centipede. It was a poisonous viper under the suborder viper, the viper family. It was a very thick snake, and its body was over a meter long. Many people knew that this snake had a nickname, the 100-paced golden leopard. Just from the name, one could tell how domineering this thing was. After being bitten, one couldn't even last 100 paces. Lin Gu took a deep breath. In his current situation, he couldn't find a hospital in a short time, and he didn't have the snake venom serum on him. If he was bitten by this thing, he was afraid that his life would end here. The spotted centipede slowly bent the front of its body backward. This was obviously an attack posture. As long as Lin Gu made the slightest threatening move, this large spotted centipede would rush forward and bite him without hesitation. Lin Gu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had heard of this poisonous snake before. The spotted centipede had two kinds of venom. One was a hemorrhagic toxin, and the other was a neurotoxin. Snakes with these two kinds of venom were very rare. The spotted centipede's venom would cause symptoms similar to a stroke, and the treatment might not be able to detect the venom in time, thus delaying the treatment. Unless Lin Gu could get his hands on the loose snake venom, he wouldn't dare to let this terrible thing bite him. Unfortunately, Lin Gu didn't have it. After being bitten by this thing, the blood would stop coagulating, and the whole body would bleed severely. The kidney would quickly fail, and soon there would be pulmonary hemorrhage and cerebral hemorrhage. Basically, death would be declared. The more Lin Gu thought about it, the more frightened he became. If it weren't for the people under the tree noticing, Lin Gu definitely would have made his move first. He would have directly used the dagger in his hand to pierce the spotted centipede's 7 inches to resolve this terrible crisis. But now, Lin Gu really couldn't do anything too radical. As long as he moved, the people under the tree would definitely notice. Not to mention that they were mercenaries. Even ordinary people could hear the sound in the tree. Lord Snake, can you bear with it for a while and wait for those 5 fellows to leave before we have some fun? Lin Gu stared fixedly at the spotted centipede in front of him and prayed. He really wanted to cry but had no tears. This feeling was too unbearable. The few people under the tree seemed to be tired from walking. They were chatting about something. Basically, they wanted to rest for a while before continuing. This place was cool. If they didn't rest for a while, they would feel sorry for themselves. Just as the few of them were chatting casually under the tree, the spotted centipede's body in front of Lin Gu suddenly expanded and shrunk, emitting a whooshing sound. It's over. This snake is completely frightened. The snake suddenly made a sound, and the people under the tree instantly quieted down. They all raised their heads and looked up. Lin Gu held his breath. F***CK, God, are you kidding me? If the snake above also bit him and the people below also opened fire, even if he was an immortal, he would definitely die here. There's a snake, a person under the tree suddenly said. He seemed to know snakes very well. Although he didn't see where the snake was, he made a judgment based on the sound. It might be a spotted centipede. We'd better leave quickly. Be careful not to be touched by this thing. Are you sure it's that thing? Another person was a little surprised. The person nodded. This month, it's the season for these things to be active and hurt people. We don't have that much loose snake serum to use. It's better to be careful. Last year, a brother died in the hands of a spotted centipede. Then shouldn't we avenge our brother? A short guy actually looked like he was about to climb the tree. I haven't eaten snake gall in a long time. Do any of you have wine on you? Lend me a sip later. Snake gall was the gallbladder in a snake's body that stored gallbladder sweat. It had the effect of dispelling wind, removing dampness, cooling, and detoxifying effects. It could also nourish a person's nervous system, strengthen their endocrine and immune systems, and slow down the body's aging. However, snake gall had a lot of parasites, and it was easy to be poisoned after eating it. Therefore, to eat a snake gall raw, it had to be taken with strong wine. Alcohol could effectively kill the parasites in the snake gall and reduce the harm. Also, the people who ate the snake gall had to be strong and had very good physical fitness. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand it. Mercenaries actually liked to eat snake gall raw. Their physical fitness was good, and they often hunted live snakes in the forest. If they didn't eat such a precious thing, it would be a pity to throw it away. Even if you didn't eat it, others would eat it, so it was still very rare. We're out to patrol. There's no wine. Don't make trouble for yourself. The leader said, let's go. Don't complicate things. If you want to eat snake gall, I'll find a place to catch 2 krites for you when we go back. The snake gall is much better than the spotted centipede. Also, there's wine when we go back. You can drink whatever you want. Hearing this, the short guy put the dagger in his hand back into his combat boots and unwillingly picked up the gun on the ground. The 5 people left the tree one by one. Lin Ji's head was full of sweat, and beads of sweat began to fall down. His clothes, which had just been dried, were completely soaked in sweat in such a short time. He was really too nervous just now. The 5 people's footsteps were very fast. In less than a minute, they were gone. However, the frightened spotted centipede was still staring at Lin Gu. Fortunately, this snake's reaction would last for a long time after it was disturbed. It could even exceed the threat warning of half an hour. This gave Lin Gu a chance to catch his breath. Now that the threat under the tree was gone, Lin Gu didn't have to worry about a stupid poisonous snake. In the blink of an eye, when Lin Gu flashed his dagger, the spotted centipede suddenly opened its bloody mouth and bit at Lin Gu. Lin Ji's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. His left hand grabbed the snake's head, and his thumb pinched it 7 inches. His right hand raised the dagger and cut off the spotted centipede's head. The snake's head and body were cut in half, and Lin Gu hung it on a tree branch. As time passed, Lin Gu began to feel hungry. They weren't here for a vacation, so it was impossible for them to prepare food. Looking at the vast forest, Lin Gu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He used to hate wilderness survival training the most, but now he had to face reality. What was edible in this forest, and what wasn't, he had to be clear about. There was still a very important day. The sky was clear, and the mercenaries had just passed by. He absolutely couldn't light a fire. Once smoke appeared, his location would be exposed, and people would rush over immediately. Although there were quite a lot of things that could be eaten raw in this forest, the taste wouldn't be very good. Lin Gu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he stood up. There was no other way. He had to fill his stomach. Since entering the minefield yesterday, he hadn't eaten or slept for 12 hours. Physical exhaustion was very great. No matter what, Lin Gu needed to replenish some food. Of course, Lin Gu also hoped that he could catch some small animals, skin them, and roast them. But reality wasn't so beautiful. He could only think of ways to find things that were high in protein and calories. Only these things could quickly fill his stomach and replenish his physical strength. And it had to be the best thing to find. In this forest, the best thing to find was a large forest spider. Eating a dozen of them would be enough to replenish his physical strength. But these things tasted like thick liquid, or perhaps it was brain juice. There was no other way. Since Lin Gu was deeply trapped, he had to do this. Chapter 1825. Lin Gu used whatever food he could find to replenish his energy. Large spiders, grasshoppers, mantises, reptiles. All kinds of protein-rich things became Lin Ji's delicacies. Lin Gu didn't feel good about food at all. Every time he squeezed the disgusting reptiles out of their skins and ate their innards, he would feel nauseous. Lin Gu, who was not used to the jungle food, finally filled his stomach. His purpose was not as simple as eating. He needed energy. He couldn't weaken his energy. This was the most basic condition for him to survive in this place. If he couldn't maintain his energy, Lin Gu couldn't guarantee that he could survive. Facing all kinds of sudden dangers that could happen at any time, what Lin Gu could do was to replenish his physical strength as much as possible in his spare time, so that he could deal with those unexpected events and dangers in the future at any time. Lin Gu was very clear that everything he was doing now was to save his own life. Therefore, no matter how those bugs wriggled in his mouth, no matter how disgusting they made him feel, he would swallow them without hesitation. Even if those disgusting bugs still wanted to crawl out of his throat, he would use the stream water to flush them into his stomach. As for the rest, he would just leave it to his stomach acid to digest. Lin Gu finally finished this sumptuous lunch. Now, he needed to find a safe place to rest on a big tree without snakes and wait for Wen Xiao to contact him at any time. If Lin Gu knew about Wen Xiao's sumptuous lunch, he would definitely be jealous to death. At this moment, Wen Xiao was receiving the highest level of hospitality from Uncle Xiang. As the leader of the one-eyed mercenary group that suddenly rose in Southeast Asia, Wen Xiao's reputation in this area was very prominent. At that time, even a high-level leader like Uncle Xiang was very polite to him. Very few people were willing to have any conflict with Wen Xiao. This was the reason why Wen Xiao could get such a position. Although Wen Xiao came to Uncle Xiang as a destitute person today, Uncle Xiang still gave him the highest level of hospitality. Wen Xiao was very clear about what this meant. There were a total of 28 sumptuous dishes at the banquet. From roasted whole lamb to whole suckling pig, from mountain delicacies to seafood, it was very rich. One had to know that this place was in the middle of nowhere, Southeast Asia. So many ingredients were very important. Mercenaries usually didn't live such a luxurious life. Although they received a sufficient supply of food every day, there was absolutely no situation where they could eat whatever they wanted to eat. Therefore, these 28 sumptuous dishes were definitely a welcome banquet for Wen Xiao. Good food and good wine. Uncle Xiang's self-brewed grain wine was very famous in the mercenary circle. If any of his mercenaries could get Uncle Xiang's wine as a reward, they must have made a great contribution. After all, the local wines in Southeast Asia were really not worth complimenting. In Uncle Xiang's words, he would rather drink beer than Southeast Asian local wine. It was too tasteless. Ever since he started his own wine, the mercenaries who followed Uncle Xiang knew that his words were really make sense. Especially in Huaxia, a country with a long history of wine culture. Uncle Xiang had definitely drunk countless good wines, so it was normal for him to be picky. Uncle Xiang, I really can't afford such a big show of extravagance. Wen Xiao knew the living conditions of mercenaries, so he knew very well what kind of treatment this was. Uncle Xiang, I really don't deserve such a level of treatment. There are so many people in Southeast Asia. If you say that you don't deserve my hospitality, then no one else deserves it. Uncle Xiang waved his hand. For so many years, I really don't admire many people, and you are one of them. Uncle Xiang thinks too highly of me, Wen Xiao said humbly. Under Uncle Xiang's lead, Wen Xiao took his seat. Not only did Uncle Xiang give him the highest standard of hospitality, but he also called the 3 tigers to accompany him. Any strong person in the mercenary world would definitely not get drunk after 1,000 cups of wine. Uncle Xiang wanted Wen Xiao to have a good drink, so he naturally came up with a plan of taking turns to fight him. Although Uncle Xiang liked to drink, he never drank too much. In his words, if an old man drank too much, he would be sending himself to hell. Just as the drinking party was about to start, a huge figure rushed in. Everyone felt that the atmosphere was not right. Wen Xiao took a closer look. It turned out to be Clark from the Night Leopard mercenary group. He was more than 2 meters tall and had a terrifyingly strong body. No wonder people called him a giant. With such muscles, even bullets would not be able to penetrate them. Tian Lu, who was sitting closest to the door, saw Clark coming in angrily. He immediately stood up and blocked Clark's way. He said coldly, "What are you doing?" Uncle Xiang just smiled and did not say anything. He just looked at Clark quietly. Clark stared at Tian Lu. When he tried to use his strength to push Tian Lu away, he realized that Tian Lu, who was shorter than him and 3 times thinner than him, did not lose to him in terms of strength at all. Clark always knew that the 3 tigers under Uncle Xiong were very strong, but he never had the chance to fight with them. He did not have the chance in the past, and now that they were family, there was even less of a chance. Today was the first time he tested Tian Lu's strength. Clark was obviously surprised. Uncle Xiong's guest is here. Of course, I have to propose a toast, Clark said stiffly. He really did not have a good impression of Wen Xiao. After all, when Wen Zhao's one-eyed mercenary group suddenly rose to power, the Night Leopard mercenary group was beaten to a pulp. A toast is fine, but you better use your brain and think clearly about who you are now. Tian Lu calmly reminded Clark, if you brought your resentment from the Night Leopard group here, then get out of here now. Uncle Xiong does not need people from other mercenary groups. Clark's huge body trembled. He said coldly, I am not from other mercenary groups. I am Uncle Xiong's man. Uncle Xiong's man should know how to treat Uncle Xiong's guest. After Tian Lu finished speaking, he stepped aside. At this moment, it was as if Clark's feet were trapped in cement. He could not move for a long time. He took a deep breath and looked at Wen Xiao, then at Uncle Xiong. Uncle Xiong smiled slightly, as if he did not care about Clark's sudden intrusion. However, Clark did not dare to judge how much dissatisfaction was hidden in this smile. In the end, Clark chose to give up. Uncle Xiong, I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well. I won't be drinking with your distinguished guest. After Clark finished speaking, he bowed deeply and apologized to Uncle Xiong. When he saw Uncle Xiong waving his hand to indicate that he could leave, he quickly left. Looking at the huge figure leaving, Wen Xiao could not help but exclaim, I didn't expect Giant to be under Uncle Xiong. Congratulations, Uncle Xiong. Now in the entire Southeast Asian mercenary circle, I'm afraid no one can compete with Uncle Xiong, right? Sigh, don't say that. We are all brothers who are mercenaries. After leaving the battlefield, we are family. Uncle Xiong said indifferently, One Eye, you should know what my philosophy is. I have always treated all mercenaries as friends. Wen Xiao smiled slightly and thought, that's right. Otherwise, how could you become the biggest mercenary king in Southeast Asia? Sometimes, the scariest thing was that people could play with their minds. Uncle Xiong's mind was too powerful. That was why he could become the most terrifying mercenary leader in Southeast Asia. If this continued, the purpose of the mercenary group that Uncle Xiong established would not only be for the large mercenary groups to communicate with each other, but also for him to unify the mercenary world. Uncle Xiong, I admire you. Wen Xiao raised his wine glass and drank it in one gulp. Perhaps this sentence really was sincere. Chapter 1826. Uncle Xiong smiled faintly and raised his wine glass. A long time ago, I heard a master say something. He said that no one in this world is trash. As long as he is placed in the right position, he is bound to become the center of attention. He will become the idol that everyone admires, as long as the position is right. That master probably borrowed Napoleon's words. Wen Xiao grinned. No one in the world is useless. It's just that they are not placed in the right position. Ha ha ha, speaking of borrowing, Napoleon's words were also borrowed from Li Bai's bringing in the wine. Uncle Xiong said, I am born to be useful. Wen Xiao raised his glass and laughed. Famous people are famous. Even their words are so good. They are all very good. It seems that Uncle Xiong has found his position. That's why he has achieved what he has today. Yes, everyone has something that suits them. I remember very clearly that when I was very young, in the early days of Huaxia, the college entrance examination was to select people. I remember very clearly that an older brother who was more than 10 years older than me was selected because the calluses on his hands were thick enough. He was recommended to go to college because his calluses were thick enough. Because his calluses were thick enough, it proved that he had a strong heart. Uncle Xiong seemed to miss his childhood. After that, everyone who wanted to go to college did nothing but rub the ground with their hands to get thicker calluses. It was really ridiculous at that time, Wen Xiao said. Not only that, I also started to grind calluses when I was young. But when I reached the age, the country reinstated the college entrance examination, relying on knowledge and strength. Uncle Xiang laughed. But I didn't know anything. When I was sensible, I started to grind calluses. Other than that, I didn't know anything. Wen Xiao was startled. Although Uncle Xiang's statement seemed to be a bit exaggerated, it really reflected the current situation of a certain period of time. Of course, I couldn't get into college. When my life was at its darkest, I suddenly had an opportunity. The army came to recruit soldiers. Uncle Xiang said, at that time, I swore to be a good soldier. It turned out that I was suitable to be a soldier. Since the beginning of the recruit training, I was the best in everything. After the recruit training, the people from the Air Force took a fancy to me. They gave me a physical fitness test and then brought me to the Air Force. Wen Xiao was stunned. He didn't expect Uncle Xiang to be a soldier. I was trained by the Air Force to be a special Air Force soldier. Not only can I fly a plane, but my other skills are no worse than the people in the investigation team and the Special Operations Group. Uncle Xiang said, I want to join the real Special Forces. I don't want to fly a plane anymore. But the Air Force won't let him go. Because you are a talent, of course they won't let you go. Wen Xiao frowned. But I don't want to ruin my future like this. Uncle Xiang said, in order to prove that I had the ability to become a real member of the Special Operations Group, I escaped from the Air Force and snuck into the Special Operations Group alone. Because of this, I was expelled from the army and faced 5 years of imprisonment. Uncle Xiang heaved a long sigh. I remember very clearly that I was already 29 years old. If I had been imprisoned for 5 years, I would have been 34 years old. I really don't have that much time to waste. I spent 3 years studying the structure of the prison and successfully escaped on a rainy night. Wen Xiao looked at Uncle Xiang in surprise. He didn't expect Uncle Xiang's story to be so complicated. I became a wanted criminal in the country, Uncle Xiang said. But I really didn't do anything. I just wanted to become a member of the Special Operations Group. I also used my strength and ability to prove that I have the ability to become a qualified member of the Special Operations Group. But why do so many people treat me as a terrorist? Uncle Xiang shook his head helplessly. I really didn't expect that I would fall to that point. If it wasn't for someone sheltering me at that time, I'm afraid that I would have been imprisoned for another 10 years. When I saw the wanted poster, I had the idea of running away. Since Hua Xia didn't want to keep me, I wanted to set up my own Special Operations Group. Uncle Xiang stood up excitedly. Facts have proven that I can do it. I'm the most suitable person for this position. It's those people who are blind and can't see my strengths. They suppressed me. They made me useless. Uncle Xiang, the army has its rules and principles. Some things can't be blamed on the army. Wen Xiao said, they have their reasons for doing so. Reasons? Pfft, Uncle Xiang said. I've heard some stories about you. You're a member of the Special Operations Group. Why did you betray them? What are you thinking? I was just confused for a moment. Wen Xiao didn't want to mention this matter again. Confused? Uncle Xiang said, I think you only woke up at that moment, right? You've been brainwashed. When you suddenly woke up, you would be seen as a threat and then there would be orders to get rid of you. If you didn't run away, you would definitely not have a good ending. Isn't that right? Although this meal seemed peaceful, it was Uncle Xiang's Hongmen banquet. And this Hongmen banquet wasn't a threat of swordsmanship, but a psychological threat and suppression. Uncle Xiang wanted to use Wen Zhao's weakest psychological link as a breakthrough and go to the deepest part of Wen Zhao's heart. Only in this way could he figure out what happened to Wen Xiao in Hua Xia and determine whether the video in Vulture's email was true. Wen Xiao was silent. That was the experience he didn't want to recall the most in his life. He rubbed his temples and smiled at Uncle Xiang. Uncle Xiang, in fact, some things are not as bad as you think. Life is really full of too many misunderstandings. Uncle Xiong sneered. He didn't trust Wen Xiao anymore because Wen Xiao had changed. In the past, Wen Xiao was full of hatred towards him for mentioning this matter first, but now Wen Xiao was trying to forgive everything that had happened in the past. This kind of change not only reflected a person's psychological problem, but also reflected a person's standpoint. Wan Zhao's standpoint had changed, so he considered the problem from the standpoint of the opposite side. To some extent, this meant that Wen Xiao had become the opposite side. Thinking of this, Uncle Xiong had to be more careful when dealing with this matter. He would never admit that he knew Vulture's secret. He wanted to see how Wen Zhao's injuries were recovering. If he really had such amazing self-healing ability, then Uncle Xiong would believe in Paboya's existence 100%. It was actually very easy to test Wen Xiao. Of course, Uncle Xiong wouldn't fall out with Wen Xiao on the surface, and he wouldn't let his subordinates be the bad guy either. Just now, Giant Clark had already shown his unfriendliness towards Wen Xiao. Naturally, he was the most suitable person to be the bad guy now. Uncle Xiong smiled and raised his wine glass. Yes, life is full of too many misunderstandings. Some things can be laughed over. However, there were some things that couldn't be gotten over. That was something that couldn't be gotten over. People with different mentalities will have different outcomes. Uncle Xiong, I toast to you. Thank you again for your hospitality. Wen Xiao didn't want to dwell on this topic. It wouldn't do him any good to talk too much about it. It was better to end this meal early and let him go back to rest early. He could also think of a way to get in touch with Lin Guo. One Eye, from now on, Uncle Xiong's place will be your home. Uncle Xiong drank the wine in one gulp. Some people will betray you, but Uncle Xiong isn't that kind of person. Uncle Xiong knows what loyalty is. My brothers also know my temper. I treat you as a brother, so I won't betray you. Of course, I don't like my brothers using me either. That would make me very disappointed. Wen Xiao smiled and put down the wine glass in his hand. I also don't like people using me. Uncle Xiong, it seems like we really hit it off. Yes. We hit it off. Uncle Xiong said, One Eye, you're still young. You can be used easily. Think carefully. Aren't you being used by someone right now? Don't let your guard down, especially those closest to you. They're the most likely to use you. Wen Xiao grinned. I'm a useless person. What value do I have? Ha ha ha. Chapter 1827. After a round of toasting, Wen Xiao had drunk enough. Uncle Xiong had achieved his goal. He knew he couldn't let Wen Xiao get drunk, but alcohol could numb people's nerves. If Wen Xiao had any ulterior motives, this drink could slow down his nervous system and make him less thoughtful. Although it was just a meal, Uncle Xiong had put in a lot of effort. It could be seen that he was indeed a cunning old fox. Many people knew that Uncle Xiong was cunning, but when they came into contact with him, they couldn't feel that Uncle Xiong was cunning at all. This was where his brilliance lay. When Wan Xiao returned to his room, Uncle Xiong waved at Tian Lu, indicating for him to come over. Uncle Xiong, do you have any other orders? Tian Lu walked in front of Uncle Xiong and bowed. Is there something wrong with One Eye? Whether One Eye is a problem or not, we can't rush to a conclusion for now. But we'll know soon. Uncle Xiong smiled and said, when the giant saw the one-eyed man, he didn't seem to be very friendly. Do you think that if he was given a chance, he would teach One-Eyed a lesson? Tian Lu was startled. Let Giant Clark have a conflict with One Eye? What was Uncle Xiong thinking? Tian Lu couldn't figure out Uncle Xiong's thoughts at all. He looked at Uncle Xiong blankly. You mean, go and tell Clark that during the dinner just now, some of the things One Eye did made me very uncomfortable, but I have to treat him as a guest. Some things can't be done too obviously. Uncle Xiong said, just say that, and he'll understand what he needs to do. Tian Lu nodded. He understood what Uncle Xiong wanted to do. Yes, Uncle Xiong. I'll go tell him now. Hearing these words, Clark's eyes glowed with a green light. He stared at Tian Lu seriously and said, Uncle Xiong really can't stand one-eyed? Then if I attack One-Eye, I'll be fighting for Uncle Xiong, right? Tian Lu nodded. As long as it's for Uncle Xiong and not for the Night Leopard mercenary group, I won't stop you. I'm relieved to hear that. As long as you support me, I'll do it. Clark stood up, the veins on his muscular body bulging. Although he said that he was fighting for Uncle Xiong, that wasn't the case. The real reason he hated One-Eye was because the Night Leopard mercenary group had suffered because of One-Eye. Tian Lu didn't say anything else. Uncle Xiong had said that as long as he told Clark these words, he would know what to do. So the rest would depend on his own understanding. I'll leave first. Don't worry, leave the rest to me. Clark fiercely threw out 2 heavy punches, the wind from his fists whistling through the air. I must let that bastard know the consequences of disrespecting Uncle Xiong. Tian Lu left Clark's room without looking back. He was very clear in his heart that if it was a fully recovered One-Eyed, he would definitely be able to beat Clark to a pulp. If Clark wanted to properly educate One-Eye, he could only hope that Clark would meet a sick and disabled One-Eye. Uncle Xiong was indeed Uncle Xiong. He wouldn't easily believe any of One-Eye's words, but he also wouldn't take the initiative to sound him out to make One-Eyed suspicious. Once One-Eyed became suspicious, the result of his probing wouldn't be completely trusted. Only by using Clark to test all of this for him would the results be absolutely true. Because if One-Eye wanted to pretend not to fight back, the giant Clark would really kill him. Uncle Xiong wasn't worried at all that One-Eye would be trampled to death by Clark. If One-Eye couldn't even deal with such a person, then he would really be a cripple. One had to know that when One-Eye was at his peak, he could single-handedly destroy the entire Night Leopard mercenary group. At the same time, Uncle Xiong was not worried at all that Clark would be killed by One-Eye. If One-Eye really had the strength to kill Clark, it would prove that what Vulture said in the video was true. One-Eye had become a cripple. Then he would be able to obtain a definite answer. One-Eye could recover all his strength in a short period of time. Even the most precious elixirs wouldn't have such an effect. A miraculous treasure that could achieve such astonishing recovery speed was most likely the Pobo Jade worn by the Zixahoya tribesmen. If the Zixahoya tribesmen and Pobo Jade still existed, and could ultimately fall into Uncle Xiong's hands, then the entire world would be his. His ambition didn't only exist in the mercenaries of Southeast Asia, but the mercenaries of the entire world. He wanted the mercenaries of the entire world to become his subordinates. At that time, the entire world would belong to him, and he would be able to do whatever he wanted. So what if it was the United States? If he had the mercenaries of the entire world, then Uncle Xiong really wouldn't be afraid of contending against the United States. If that was the case, then he would have full confidence and confidence. Just thinking about it would make one's blood boil. Although Uncle Xiong wasn't young anymore, the hot-bloodedness in his bones still existed. Becoming the king of soldiers was his life's dream. If this matter could be proven, then it would be the best opportunity for him to realize his dream. The giant Clark had the strong physique of a Westerner. In the entire Southeast Asian mercenary circle, it was almost impossible to find anyone who was stronger than him. Ever since the Night Leopard mercenary group was disbanded by One-Eye, Clark had always been a fragrant piece of meat in the eyes of many mercenary group leaders. In the end, Uncle Xiong managed to convince Clark with his glib tongue and made him one of his generals. Many people envied him for a long time because of this. Now, in order to test One-Eye Wenshao, Uncle Xiong was willing to sacrifice such a talent. This was because he was very clear about what was more important and what could be sacrificed. Unfortunately, Clark didn't know that he was being used. He was still focused on solving the problem for Uncle Xiong. When he arrived at the door of Wenxiao's room, the loud sound was enough to intimidate the people in the room through the glass. When Wenxiao saw the giant figure at the door, he immediately guessed who it was based on the size of the figure. "Since you're here, then don't be so courteous. Come in." Wenxiao invited, "We've known each other for a long time. Come in and have a cup of tea." Clark pushed the door open. "One-Eye, do you think I'm in the mood to drink tea with you?" "Hee hee." Wenxiao smiled faintly. "I know, you've always had a problem with me because of the Night Leopard mercenary group. But at that time, I wasn't the one who caused the trouble. It was your boss who was aggressive and didn't want to leave me a way out. That's why I was so ruthless." Clark's mouth twitched and he clenched his fists. "That's all in the past. I don't want to talk about it with you. You know Uncle Seong's temper. Don't let him think that you still care about the Night Leopard mercenary group. That will make him lose his trust in you," Wen Xiao reminded him with good intentions. "You don't have to worry about that. Whether or not I can gain Uncle Seong's trust is my business," Clark said, "but you've always made me unhappy." "That's your business." Wen Xiao was startled. It seemed that Clark's anger was still quite high. Could it be that he was really going to do something? "One Eye, long time no see. Shouldn't we move our muscles and bones?" Clark stretched his neck and moved his wrists and ankles. "This is Uncle Seong's territory. As a guest, I don't think it's good for me to fight with his people here, right?" Wan Xiao was ready to fight at any time. He knew that Clark's strength was terrifying and he couldn't let his guard down. Clark sneered, "Since you don't dare to fight with Uncle Seong's people, then bear with it, because Uncle Seong's people dare to fight with you." As he spoke, Clark had already swung his fist at Wen Xiao. That explosive force was very fast. It was obvious that he wanted to catch Wen Xiao off guard. Chapter 1828. Unfortunately, Wen Xiao was not that easy to deal with. Wan Xiao, who was already prepared for battle, immediately dodged Clark's heavy punch. Immediately after, Clark's powerful leg swept towards Wan Xiao. Wan Xiao raised his arms to block, and with a boom, his entire body was kicked away, landing heavily on the wall behind him. The houses here were not as sturdy as imagined. If Wen Xiao had not deflected most of the force, his body would probably have made a big hole in the wall. Wen Xiao did not want to make a big deal out of it. No matter what, this was still Uncle Seong's territory. No matter how much Clark crossed the line, he was still Uncle Seong's man, so no matter what, Wen Xiao did not have the upper hand. Wen Xiao would rather choose to endure this grievance than fight with Clark. Once the fight got out of hand, it would only put him in an awkward position. "Clark, there shouldn't be any personal grudges between us, right?" Wen Xiao said, "Why do you have to be so aggressive? The Night Leopard mercenary group has already disbanded, so has my mercenary group. There's no need for us to fight over some small matters, right? Did I say that I'm doing this for the Night Leopard mercenary group?" Clark laughed coldly. "I just don't like it. Why, are you afraid to accept my challenge?" Wan Xiao was, of course, angry. Even Uncle Seong was polite to him, so how could a mercenary group leader under Uncle Seong be so arrogant towards him? Then he must have been mean to Black Dog, right? What was Clark, the giant, worth? Back then, Wan Zhao's one-eyed mercenary group only sent out 7 or 8 brothers to beat the *T out of his group of more than 10 people. In the end, the leader of the Night Leopard mercenary group even had his throat pierced by a bullet, and died by the Crocodile River. In the end, his body did not even have time to be taken away before it became a delicious lunch for the crocodiles. A leader from such a down-and-out mercenary group dared to yell at him, look down on him, and be unhappy with him? What right did he have? Even if his one-eyed mercenary group disbanded, it was not because of anyone. He was the one who wanted to disband. In terms of strength, fame, and influence, which of these aspects was he, one-eyed, not better than Clark? Damn it, he actually dared to compete with him. Who the hell was he? "Clark, if we weren't at Uncle Seong's place, I would have told you to scram with your tail between your legs." Wen Zhao's anger had already risen. "You're a coward. When you were in Yi Bao, you were a coward. Now that you're under Uncle Seong, you're still a coward." The veins on Clark's body bulged. "Then let me see how hard you are. If I don't make you kneel on the ground and beg for mercy today, I'll have wasted all my years on the battlefield. If you have the guts, come out and fight with me. Do you dare?" Wan Xiao spat. "If you really have the guts, come with me now and leave Uncle Seong's territory. I'll fight with you however you want. Whoever dies outside is useless. Don't King grumble." Clark was startled. He really hadn't thought too much about this. A large part of the reason he came here to look for Wen Xiao was to vent his anger on him. But now that he was going to play a life-and-death battle, he really didn't have any confidence in his heart. No matter what, One Eye was Uncle Xiong's guest. If he really wanted to fight with his life, he really had scruples. But then again, since Wen Xiao had come to visit, it meant that he had a favor to ask of Uncle Xiong. He couldn't possibly kill Uncle Xiong's people, right? One Eye, don't play this game. After Clark thought it through, he sneered and said, "No matter what, I'm Uncle Xiong's man. You came here to look for Uncle Xiong, so you don't dare to kill his people. So you don't dare to kill me at all. What's the point of saying all this nonsense?" Wen Xiao nodded. "That's right. I don't dare to do anything to you in Uncle Xiong's territory. That would be me not giving Uncle Xiong face. But you should be very clear about the rules of the mercenaries. If you and I don't fight in Uncle Xiong's territory, then it's not considered not giving Uncle Xiong face." The mercenary world had its own rules. If you touched someone else's people in their territory, then they would definitely come looking for you. But in a public area outside, if something happened, then it was hard to say. Even if someone was killed, the killer could say that he was being attacked and was defending himself. So as long as there was a fight in a public forest, death would be a meaningless death. This was what Wen Xiao meant when he said that he wanted to ask Clark out. Clark didn't think of this point. When he realized it now, the confidence in his heart suddenly disappeared by more than half. In Uncle Xiong's territory, he was full of confidence. This was a psychological reason. But once he went out, then he and Wen Xiao wouldn't have any home ground difference. His little psychological advantage would be gone without a trace. Once this psychological advantage was shattered, Clark could no longer summon his domineering aura. "Wen Xiao, you're forcing my hand. You know very well that Uncle Xiong won't forgive me if I really kill you, whether we're outside or not. I don't care. If you want to fight, then go out with me and have some fun. Otherwise, don't pretend in front of me." Wen Xiao provoked. Clark snorted. "I'm pretending? Why should I listen to you? I'm going to teach you a good lesson here. If you don't dare to fight back, that means you don't have guts. Even if Uncle Xiong punishes me, I'm going to cripple you here today." With that, Clark picked up a chair and viciously smashed it at Wen Xiao's head. Wen Xiao cursed in his heart. This bastard didn't care about manners. He leaned to the side to avoid Clark's sneak attack. The chair crashed into the bed with a crash. Wen Xiao, who was burning with anger, couldn't help but control his fist. Taking advantage of this gap, he punched Clark's lower abdomen. After all, Clark's body was huge. His reaction speed was naturally slower. Moreover, Wen Xiao's speed was fast enough. He couldn't keep up. With this punch, Clark was sent flying. He smashed through the door and fell out. The loud noise attracted the attention of others. After all, the base in the forest wasn't too big. The simple wooden houses were all very close to each other. Their purpose was to defend against enemy sneak attacks, as well as against wild beasts and ferocious beasts. This sound was enough to attract the attention of others. Wen Xiao knew that since he had thrown out that punch, it was impossible to take it back. What was done couldn't be changed. Clark had lost face in front of so many of his own people. Of course, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. He endured the pain in his lower abdomen, got up and charged at Wen Xiao again. In for a penny, in for a pound, Wen Xiao might as well go all out to meet Clark head-on. Both of their fists tore through the air. Although Wen Xiao didn't have the advantage in height and arm span, his speed determined his victory. When he executed a strange maneuver in the air to dodge Clark's fist, everyone knew that he had won. This punch had the strength of over 1,000 jin. No one would be able to withstand it if it smashed into their face. This was no different from a truck stepping on the accelerator and crashing into someone. The explosive power of his legs, waist, and arms were all focused on his fists. When Wen Xiao's fist smashed heavily into Clark's face, the so-called giant fellow no longer had the strength to resist, as his body was sent flying backwards in an almost inverted manner. His entire body was foaming at the mouth, and he was delirious. Blood flowed out of his eyes, nose, and mouth. This punch might have really taken half of Clark's life. Back in the day, One Eye had been able to rise to prominence because of his ruthlessness. None of Uncle Xiong's subordinates had ever fought with Wen Xiao before. Today, they were all stunned. After all, Clark had been one of Uncle Xiong's top generals, but today, he had fallen under a single punch from Wen Xiao. Wen Xiao himself knew very well that he had taken advantage of Clark's anxious state of mind. If Clark's state of mind had been better, he wouldn't have been knocked to the ground by a single punch. He had been too anxious to win. That was why he had given Wen Xiao such a big opening to knock him to the ground. Clark, who had fallen to the ground, spat out a few mouthfuls of white foam before falling silent. The atmosphere was especially quiet. Everyone was waiting for Uncle Xiong to come out and deal with this. No one dared to say a word. Tian Lu, who had been watching all this from a corner, couldn't help but frown. One Eye was really too strong. He didn't seem to be injured at all. Chapter 1829. The loud noise attracted everyone's attention. Clark tried to stand up several times, but due to the violent concussion in his head, he was unable to do so. Every time he tried to stand up, he would stumble and fall. However, the unwillingness in his heart made him try to stand up again, but the result was the same. After sitting on the ground 3 or 5 times in a row, Clark knew that he no longer had the ability to fight. If he were to take an X-ray now, his brain would probably turn into paste, right? Uncle Xiong had seen the overwhelming advantage that Wen Xiao had displayed. Uncle Xiong was well aware of Clark's strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done everything he could to rope him in when the Night Leopard Regiment was disbanded. However, it was an undeniable fact that he was no match for One Eye. Therefore, all this proved that Wen Xiao's body was absolutely fine. Phew! Uncle Xiong took a deep breath. He remembered the video that Vulture had shown him clearly. Wen Xiao was lying on the hospital bed, motionless. In that situation, even if a primary school student went up and stabbed him, he would definitely not be able to fight back. In such a short period of time, he had regained his normal strength, and could still use his powerful strength to insta-kill Giant Clark, a mercenary in the world of mercenaries. He was still that intimidating One Eye. Everything was just too unbelievable. That's right, Pa Bo Yu. It must be Pa Bo Yu. In this world, only Pa Bo Yu could restore a cripple to his peak in such a short time. Moreover, it was the Pa Bo Yu that was worn by the Sequoia tribe all year round. The amount of information that Wen Xiao had was too much. His punch just now proved the existence of the Sequoia tribe and the existence of Pa Bo Yu. It also explained why Vulture died in Hua Xia. Since Vulture knew such an important secret, the people in Hua Xia would definitely not let him leave alive. What a good Vulture, he still had the time to record all the secrets in advance into a video. It seemed that this guy was also worried that he would not be able to come back alive. This secret was left for the fated one to avenge him, right? The wrinkles at the corners of Uncle Xiong's eyes were like deep ditches. The vicissitudes of life were written all over this middle-aged man's face, but his eyes were filled with unprecedented excitement. He really hadn't been so excited for many, many years. Nothing could make him so excited for many, many years. He'd naturally heard of the legends of the Silhoya clan, and if he obtained the assistance of the Silhoya clan, then his current strength would definitely rise by a level. An expert of the Earth Profound Realm was very clear on what kind of strength he would obtain every time he advanced. Furthermore, if his strength was able to break through the Earth Profound Realm, just how great would that be? Whoosh! Uncle Xiong really didn't dare to think about it. It was completely unimaginable. Although the ascension of strength brought about by the Zixahoya tribesmen was somewhat unorthodox, it was far more reliable than Wen Zhao's method of increasing his strength by selling his mind and releasing his inner demons. As long as his state of mind could keep up, the ascension of strength brought about by the Zixahoya tribesmen was real. The cultivation of the state of mind was actually very important. The reason why Su Yun was able to endure the sudden increase in strength brought about by Guagua was because Wang Yi had always taught him to pay attention to the cultivation of the state of mind. Therefore, Su Yun's state of mind was very strong, which was why he could endure the changes in his strength. Uncle Xiang also paid attention to the cultivation of his state of mind, so he believed that if he could obtain the help of the Zixahoya clan and Paboyu, he would definitely be able to break through more than just one level. At that time, who in this world would be able to stop him? At that time, even Lu Xuanji, the ancient magpie world, and Wan Guangxiao, these earth-profound realm experts would be trampled under his feet. At that time, the only one who would dare to challenge him would probably be the Empress, right? But the Empress was only a woman after all. He also had the Zixahoya clan and Paboyu in his hands. Sooner or later, he would step on the Empress's shoulder and reach the supreme peak. The more Uncle Xiang thought about it, the crazier he felt. His world was already blank, and his mind was filled with endless power. When a person was obsessed with power, he would really become a crazy madman. Ding Kai had already called out to Uncle Xiang twice, but Uncle Xiang still didn't seem to hear anyone calling him. He was completely immersed in his own world, unable to extricate himself. Uncle Xiang, you should come out. Ding Kai had no choice but to touch Uncle Xiang's arm. This pulled Uncle Xiang back to reality from his fantasy. Uncle Xiang was in a daze. He also realized that he was indeed thinking too much just now. Perhaps many things weren't so idealistic. Fantasy was always too simple, but reality was always very difficult. Uncle Xiang actually didn't know how to face Wen Xiao for a moment, but what would come, and he couldn't avoid it. One Eye is still the same One Eye. Between you and him, who do you think is more powerful? Uncle Xiang suddenly turned his head and said this to Ding Kai. One had to know that among Uncle Xiang's subordinates, Ding Kai was definitely his number one warlord. He was also the ferocious tiger that Uncle Xiang valued the most among his three subordinates. Ding Kai was slightly startled and thought for a while. I'm afraid I'm not One Eye's match. He's a guy who dares to make a deal with the inner demon. If he doesn't borrow the power of the inner demon, I'm still confident. But his terror doesn't lie in his own strength, but in the fact that he dares to gamble with his life. You're right. Not everyone dares to easily use the inner demon as the source of power, Uncle Xiang said indifferently. But looking at the state of his strength just now, it seems that he didn't borrow the power of the inner demon. One Eye seems to be different from before. It's a little different, Ding Kai said. But One Eye isn't that terrifying anymore. Uncle Xiang smiled and strode out of the room. Wen Zhao's mind was in a mess. He really did use a lot of force. When Uncle Xiang came out, he didn't know what to do. No matter what, this was Uncle Xiang's territory. No matter what, he had to give an explanation for injuring one of Uncle Xiang's people in his territory. This was the rule. Uncle Xiang looked at Clark, who was still foaming at his mouth and twitching slightly. He knew that this guy wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Uncle Xiang smiled and said, One Eye, this is... Uncle Xiang, I'm sorry, Wen Xiao said very humbly. I'm really sorry. I apologize for my actions. This is your home. I'll punish you as you wish. After saying that, Wen Xiao put his hands behind his back and prepared to receive any punishment. He had been in the mercenary circle and knew the rules of the mercenary circle. Many things had to be done according to the rules, and no one could break the rules. One Eye, what are you saying? Uncle Xiang said indifferently. You're treating me like an outsider. It's my fault for not being strict enough and frightening the guest. Sigh. I've been rude. At this time, Tian Lu also walked forward and prepared to take Clark away. Tian Lu. What did I tell you? Watch him for me. Just now when we were eating, he wanted to cause trouble for me. I thought this matter was over. Why is there such a drama now? Uncle Xiang pretended to be angry. Tian Lu lowered his head apologetically. Uncle Xiang, I didn't watch him well. Please punish me. Forget it, forget it. There's no point in saying anything now. It's already happened. Fortunately, the guest wasn't hurt. Otherwise, how can you bear the responsibility? Take Clark away. I don't want to see him now, Uncle Xiong said with slight anger. Uncle Xiong's people all knew that he wasn't a person who got angry easily. However, once he got angry, it would be a big deal. Yes, Uncle Xiong. Tian Lu directly took Clark away. Clark wanted to say something, but his mouth was numb and he couldn't say a word. He didn't know why this happened. It was Tian Lu who told him that One-Eyed had offended Uncle Xiong at the dinner party, so he came to fight One-Eyed. Why did it become like this now? Clark, who wasn't smart enough, couldn't figure it out. He was just a chess piece used by Uncle Xiong to test Wen Xiao. A chess piece would be thrown away after it was used because it was useless. Chapter 1830. Wen Xiao was a little surprised that Uncle Xiong wasn't angry. According to a normal person's reaction, even if it was Clark's mistake, this was Uncle Xiong's territory. His own people had been beaten up in his own territory. Even if there was a mistake, Wen Xiao would have to give an explanation. Not only did Uncle Xiong not ask Wen Xiao to explain, but he even expressed his apology to Wen Xiao. It was in front of so many of Wen Xiao's subordinates. Uncle Xiong didn't even consider the most basic, convincing others, in order to save his face? This was indeed not Uncle Xiong's style of doing things. Uncle Xiong was able to obtain his current position in the mercenary circle not only because of his own strength, but also because he was tactful enough to make people believe in him. Before doing anything, Uncle Xiong had to consider the problem of convincing his subordinates. Only when he could make his subordinates believe in him would they be loyal to him. This way he could obtain more and more power. As his power grew and became more and more unstoppable, Uncle Xiong became more tactful. This was a beneficial cycle. Uncle Xiong's principles and his ability to convince his subordinates spread far and wide. This caused many people to like to work for Uncle Xiong. Mercenaries risked their lives for a living. It didn't matter who they worked for. Why not find someone who could make their lives more comfortable? This was a very normal state of mind for people. Uncle Xiong's words today might not convince his subordinates because there was a geographical restriction here. Wan Xiao could not be punished for what he did to Clark in Uncle Xiong's territory. This meant that he would not be punished for what he did to any of them. After all, not everyone could know the truth like Uncle Xiong's 3 tigers. What people saw was only the surface, which would give Uncle Xiong's subordinates an illusion that Uncle Xiong would ignore them for an outsider like One-Eye. In this way, Uncle Xiong's subordinates would lose their trust. When Xiao fell into deep thought, Uncle Xiong had always done things with people's trust in mind. There was no need for him to lose people's trust in order to save Wen Zhao's face. Unless he had a bigger purpose or a more important goal. But what could Uncle Xiong have that was more important and wanted than people's trust? Wen Xiao felt a little uneasy. This made him suspicious. After all, the secret in Vulture's email could be obtained by anyone in the mercenary group in Southeast Asia. Of course, this included Uncle Xiong. Wan Xiao couldn't see Uncle Xiong's sincerity from the fact that he didn't know anything at the beginning and the way he treated Wan Xiao with respect. This was a situation that made people feel uncertain. Since this matter has happened today, I will also tell everyone that although One-Eye has disbanded his mercenary group, he is still someone who is on equal footing with me. Moreover, he's here as a guest, so I won't allow anyone to be disrespectful to him. What Uncle Xiong said was only one of the reasons. What he said next was to comfort everyone. All of you know that Clark used to be from the Night Leopard mercenary group. You all know how the Night Leopard mercenary group disbanded. I won't say anything else. In the end, Clark was still the one to blame for this. He had also helped Uncle Xiong find out Wen Zhao's true physical condition. The reason why an old fox was called an old fox was because of the way he did things. Although he had slapped his own man in the face, he was able to smooth things over. This was Uncle Xiong's ability. No one else in the mercenary circle in Southeast Asia could do this. Therefore, Uncle Xiong was a truly capable person. Uncle Xiong, I feel very embarrassed by your behavior. Wen Xiao was stunned. He bowed and said, "Please follow the rules." My words are the rules here. Uncle Xiong said with certainty, "One Eye, go and rest. You don't need to ask about anything else. You just need to remember that you are my guest." This reply was too domineering. The storm was resolved under Uncle Xiong's extreme handling. When Xiao returned to his room but couldn't fall asleep, he realized that he had to get in touch with Lin Guo as soon as possible. All of Uncle Xiong's reactions made him feel slightly uneasy. If there were any sudden changes, he wouldn't be alone and helpless. Uncle Xiong had already started to think about other problems. He gathered the 3 tigers who had been following him loyally to his room. He didn't say anything and made a gesture to leave. Whenever Uncle Xiong had to make the most important decision, he would leave with his 3 subordinates to a place where no one could find them. The walls had ears. Uncle Xiong knew very well that he was able to survive in this dangerous and competitive place until now because of his carefulness and prudence, as if he was covered in thin ice. After Uncle Xiong left in the car, when Xiao, who had been suffering from a lack of opportunities, realized that his chance had come, he could finally find a way to get in touch with Lin Guo. When Xiao didn't dare to get in touch with Lin Guo, mostly because he was worried that Uncle Xiong would hear the slightest hint that something was wrong with him. Lin Guo had eaten a stomach full of bugs, spiders, and ants. He had been waiting for Wen Zhao's call for a long time. He was so excited that he almost cursed out loud. However, he knew very well that he could not open his mouth to speak. This was what they had agreed on. Who knew if this call was from Wen Zhao? Even if it was from Wen Zhao, if he opened his mouth, some things would be exposed. So their agreement was very clear. Lin Guo couldn't open his mouth except to listen. Soon, Lin Guo heard the sound of teeth clattering on the phone. He was stunned. This wasn't what they had agreed on before. Did they have to use Holmes' code for this conversation? Moreover, it was very difficult to distinguish between the short and long sounds made by the clattering of teeth. Lin Guo hurriedly took out his dagger. Following the long and short sounds made by the clattering of teeth, Lin Guo began to quickly translate every letter and number in the code. Finally, after racking his brains, Lin Guo wrote English letters on the tree trunk in front of him. After the call ended, Lin Guo began to translate the letters carved on the tree trunk. Soon he got the answer. Wan Xiao told him that he had infiltrated the largest mercenary group in Southeast Asia. He also told Lin Guo the coordinates and the general situation of the base's defenses. Also, Wen Xiao said that he suspected that the leader of this group was the one who cracked Vulture's email. So, he needed Lin Guo to infiltrate the enemy's core as much as possible. If he needed any help, Lin Guo could coordinate with him from the inside to prevent him from fighting alone. Lin Guo wiped the sweat off his head. In the past, he didn't like this kind of code. But now, it seemed that if he hadn't been forced to remember these useless things, even communicating with Wen Xiao would be a big problem. "I've been fighting alone all this time, and you didn't help me. Now that you've realized the danger, you want me to help you. Damn you!" Lin Guo scolded unhappily. But even if he was unhappy, he still had to do what he had to do. No matter what, he didn't come here to play. He had to do what he had to do. Lin Guo once again confirmed the coordinates of the enemy base that Wen Xiao had told him. As long as he avoided these few points and was more careful, it shouldn't be a problem for him to sneak in. The problem was how to coordinate with Wen Xiao once he had truly entered the enemy's base. Every step was so scary, and he could only take it one step at a time. Lin Guo shook his head and used the dagger to scrape away all the words he had carved on the tree trunk. He sighed helplessly. It was really too difficult to cooperate for the first time without tacit understanding. If Lin Guo had to choose again, he didn't know if he would have the courage to take on such a difficult task. Forget it, forget it. It's getting late. I need to start looking for a safer and more effective infiltration route as soon as possible. Lin Guo didn't have any other thoughts. He only had one thought. It would be great if he could sneak into the enemy's kitchen and get something to eat. Chapter 1831. Uncle Xiong and his 3 most trusted subordinates were far away from his base. The off-road vehicle was jolting violently in the forest, but Uncle Xiong didn't have any expression on his face. There were too many things in his mind, so much so that he couldn't feel the jolt. Finally, Uncle Xiong raised his hand and said to Jing Chu, "Stop." Jing Chu immediately stepped on the brakes and parked the car in a secluded and cool area. After the car was parked, Ding Kai, Jing Chu, and Tian Lu, the three most loyal men of Uncle Xiong, focused their gazes on Uncle Xiong in the back seat. Uncle Xiong picked up his teacup and took a sip. The tea was still warm. "The three of you are the only three people I trust. You have also seen the secret in Vulture's mailbox. The person who cracked the mailbox was also killed by you, Tian Lu. Therefore, the only people who know this secret are the four of us." The three of them didn't speak and quietly listened to Uncle Xiong's speech. I believe that anyone who saw the video would be excited, but they would also be suspicious. After all, this matter is really too unbelievable. Uncle Xiong continued, "But now, I believe that all of you should be the same as me. The suspicions in your hearts have basically been eliminated." "Why?" "Because Vulture, who knew about this secret, died in Huaxia." Ding Kai continued, "And the person who benefited from this secret has appeared here. Furthermore, with One Eye's current condition, there are no signs of him being seriously injured." Jing Chu was the most cautious among the three of them. "Uncle Xiong, don't tell me that there really is a miraculous medicine in this world that can rapidly heal one's body?" "Ha ha ha, you think too much," Uncle Xiong said indifferently. "I don't dare to say that such a miraculous medicine doesn't exist in this world, but I would rather believe that One Eye's recovery was due to Paboyu than to believe in such an illusory miraculous medicine. I dare say that even Huang Fu Guo wouldn't be able to refine a miraculous medicine that could rapidly heal a disabled person after consuming it. If he had that ability, he wouldn't have been ridden on by the Empress. He would be the #1 person in the underground world." Jing Chu nodded and didn't speak anymore. Tian Lu spoke again, "But, what virtue or ability does One-Eyed have to be able to obtain the affection of the Zixahoya tribe and Paboyu? His identity in Huaxia is the same as us, a defector. What kind of person would allow him to be healed by Paboyu? I really can't understand this." Apparently, Tian Lu's question had struck a chord with the other two as they nodded in agreement. Opportunity is a very subtle thing. No one can say for sure. Uncle Xiong said, "Perhaps this is One-Eye's fate. Then why did he come here?" Ding Kai said, "This is the most important thing to figure out. The first possibility is that the Pobo Jade is with him, and he knows the identity of the Zikajoa. He wants to escape, find a shelter, and find someone he can trust to stand on the same side as him and get what he wants together." Uncle Xiong narrowed his eyes and swept his gaze across each of the three tigers. "Do you think this is possible?" The three of them shook their heads at the same time. The reason was simple. If they were in his shoes, they would never share such an earth-shattering secret with someone they didn't have any connections with. Even someone they trusted might betray them because of this earth-shattering secret and try to stab them in the back. Why would someone they didn't have any connections with share such a secret with them? Wouldn't it be better to just monopolize it? Actually, this place also reflected Uncle Xiong's cleverness. Uncle Xiong didn't keep this secret by himself. Because he knew that if he kept this secret by himself, his three subordinates would feel that they were not trusted once they leaked it out. There was another reason why Uncle Xiong dared to share this secret. He was not like Vulture. This secret was only known to Hong Ying, so Hong Ying wanted to rebel against him. The two of them turned against each other and became enemies. In the end, Vulture killed Hong Ying directly. Uncle Xiong didn't share this secret with one of the three of them. If only one of them knew about it, he couldn't guarantee that such a huge temptation wouldn't cause a huge reaction in their hearts. He shared this secret with the three of them directly. In this way, Ding Kai, Jing Chu, and Tian Lu would play a role in restraining each other, which would completely eliminate Uncle Xiong's own danger. Uncle Xiong cleverly turned one person's secret into everyone's secret. In this way, he wouldn't be in a situation where he had to worry about being stabbed in the back. Of course, there was a more important point. If Uncle Xiong wanted to keep this huge secret for himself and achieve his ultimate goal, he couldn't do it alone. He was very clear that if he wanted to achieve the final success, he had to get the help of these three people. Without them, he would only fail. Uncle Xiang, is there any other possibility? Ding Kai was very clear that Uncle Xiang must have other ideas. The second possibility worries me more. Uncle Xiang said, since we can crack Vulture's mailbox, it means that other people can crack it. It also means that other people will know that we cracked Vulture's mailbox. How could One-Eyed know that we know this secret? Tian Lu said, I killed the person who cracked the mailbox with my own hands. He couldn't have told anyone else about it. With the development of network technology, there's no need for anyone to tell. Uncle Xiang said, I know such a simple principle. Can't you understand? Tian Lu, don't worry. I definitely don't mean to suspect you. If I did, I wouldn't have brought you here today. Do you understand? Believe me, I believe you. This is our common interest. Do you still remember what I said to you when you first joined me? The three of them nodded, indicating that they remembered. Uncle Xiang smiled slightly. I, Xiang, am a man of my words. Since you are my brothers, I will bring you to glory, to the peak. I promised you before that I would make the whole of Southeast Asia belong to us. What about now? Who in the whole of Southeast Asia dares to go against us? Indeed, no one dared. And now, I'm going to take you guys further. So, believe me, I won't suspect any of you, because you'll never betray me. You're my brothers. I believe you, and you have to believe me. Uncle Xiang's brainwashing ability was extraordinary. The three of them nodded, indicating that they would definitely stand their ground. If Wen Xiao is here to test us, then what should we do? I need you to give me some advice, Uncle Xiang said. For this matter, we have to overcome the difficulties together. We will share blessings and hardships together because we are brothers. Tian Lu's idea was simple. Uncle Xiang, let's go back now and tie up One Eye. I'll interrogate him personally. I don't believe that he won't say anything. It's not a good idea to fight head-on. Ding Kai said calmly, moreover, since Uncle Xiang mentioned the first possibility, it means that there's a chance that the first possibility exists. If the first possibility exists, One Eye will lose his trust in us because of our recklessness. Ding Kai is right. Jing Chu also said, if I were in his shoes, I would have wanted to seek protection and help and share my benefits. Even if I choose to fight to the death, I won't share the benefits that I've obtained. Uncle Xiang smiled and nodded. Their analysis was very reasonable. Fortunately, I have you guys by my side. Otherwise, it would have been really difficult for me to deal with it alone. Let's take one step at a time and see how One Eye will react next. We'll adapt according to the situation and use both the carrot and the stick. The three of them nodded in agreement. Let's go back. We've been out for a long time. Let's go back early to prevent One Eye from having too many thoughts. Uncle Xiang said, from now on, you guys can't wear things on your faces. You can't let One Eye see anything wrong. Chapter 1832. After Uncle Xiang brought his men back to the base, his men immediately went up to him and whispered something in his ear. After hearing this, Uncle Xiang frowned slightly, and the three valiant generals under him also widened their eyes. Obviously, this news made them think of a more likely choice. Just when they left, the people in the base detected an unknown communication signal. The call lasted for about 20 minutes. All of this was very obvious. Mercenaries couldn't talk on the phone all the time. Even if they called to tell their families that they were safe, there was a fixed time. The supervision was even stricter than the regular army. If someone would talk on the phone for 20 minutes, it couldn't be anyone in the base except for Wen Xiao. Because in Uncle Xiang's sphere of influence, his own people were very obedient and knew the rules of the call. Only Wen Xiao didn't know the rules. But Wen Xiao had no reason to call anyone. Uncle Xiang and the others were very clear about his situation. One Eye was alone. When he escaped abroad, he had no one to rely on. Now that he had disbanded his own mercenary group, it was even more impossible for him to have anyone to care about or rely on. This time, when he left the country and said that he escaped, it also meant that he had no one to rely on in Huaxia. How could he call anyone? Unless it was a tip-off, unless it was a premeditated call. All of this made Uncle Xiong feel very uneasy. At this moment, Uncle Xiong's heart was very tormented. His whole body seemed to be stagnant. After a few minutes, Uncle Xiong seemed to come back to his senses. He strode straight to Wen Zhao's room. No one said anything and just followed behind Uncle Xiong. When Uncle Xiong walked to the door of Wen Zhao's room, he waved his hand to signal for everyone to stop and not follow him in. At this time, his 3 men finally controlled their emotions. They suppressed their anger and stood guard at the door of Wen Zhao's room. Uncle Xiong's sudden visit surprised Wen Zhao. He drank so much at noon that it was only now that he started to get drunk. Wen Zhao was in a daze for less than 10 minutes. This kind of sleepy feeling was quite uncomfortable, but after all, the owner of this place was here. He could only force himself to get up. Seeing Wen Zhao's slightly drunk state, Uncle Xiong smiled slightly. It was said that one would speak the truth after drinking. He would like to see what kind of truth this guy would tell him. One-eyed, have you had a good rest? Uncle Xiong asked calmly, how long have you slept? Uncle Xiong, your wine is really too strong. I couldn't take it when I entered the room. Wen Zhao smiled. Even if you let me sleep for the whole afternoon, I don't think I'll wake up. Ha ha. Good wine, really good wine. Uncle Xiong waved his hand. This wine doesn't have a strong after-effect. If it had a strong after-effect, we would all be drunk before we could finish a meal. After Brother One-Eye drinks this wine, not only can he cripple Clark, he can also chat with him on the phone in the room. When Wen Zhao heard this, he panicked. Fortunately, he didn't show it on his face. He pretended to be relaxed and smiled. Sigh, don't mention it. I just wanted to call a Huaxia girl, but when I dialed the number, I fell asleep. When I woke up in a daze, I found that the phone had already been hung up. I was thinking about calling her again, but I fell asleep again. This wine is really powerful. One-eyed, you're really romantic. Ha ha ha, you're going to Huaxia to do such an important thing, and you're still in the mood to pick up girls? Uncle Xiong patted Wen Zhao's shoulder. It's good to be young. You're full of energy. Wen Zhao also smiled. Uncle Xiong, you're also not old. You're definitely not worse than us young people. I'm old. I can't do it anymore. Uncle Xiong shook his head. Wen Zhao felt a burst of panic. This old fox was really powerful. He even knew about his phone call. Soon, Wen Zhao understood that there must be communication signal monitoring equipment in Uncle Xiong's base. As long as his mobile phone had any contact with the outside world, it would be detected. Therefore, less than 10 minutes after he made the phone call, Uncle Xiong came to find him. Thinking of this, Wen Zhao had to take out his mobile phone. To be honest, he had done a lot of preparation work. There was only Lin Ji's number in his mobile phone, and the name of the number was Seductive Beauty. The profile picture of the caller ID was also a private photo of a young model. As Wen Zhao spoke, he dialed the number and said to himself, I really miss this girl. Uncle Xiong suddenly hung up the phone that Wen Zhao hadn't dialed yet. He knew very well that if Wen Zhao dialed the number now, he only needed to remind the person on the other end of the phone to understand what was going on. This would allow the two of them to communicate. One-eyed brother, I believe in you. You don't need to use your actions to explain anything. Uncle Xiong said, the most basic thing between us is trust, don't you think so? Of course. Wen Zhao nodded. If I didn't even trust you, I wouldn't dare to come here. Ha ha ha, now I'm worried that Uncle Xiong doesn't trust me enough. With that, Wen Zhao shook the mobile phone in his hand, which meant that he would be suspected even if he made a call. Uncle Xiong smiled slightly. One-eyed, it's not that I don't trust you, but sometimes, I have my own rules. If you want me to trust you, give me the phone. You want to confiscate it? Wen Zhao was stunned. Although he was unwilling, once the phone was confiscated, he would lose the way to contact Lin Gu. However, in this situation, he had to do as Uncle Xiong said. Otherwise, he couldn't guarantee that Uncle Xiong wouldn't suddenly turn hostile. Wan Xiao quickly judged the stakes of the matter and directly handed the phone to Uncle Xiang. Uncle Xiang, if you don't trust me, take it away. As long as I can make you trust me, I don't care about anything. Uncle Xiang didn't refuse. He took the phone from Wan Xiao and dialed the only number in the phone with a smile. It's not that I don't trust you, one-eyed brother. I'm just curious about what kind of woman can make one-eyed, who can do anything in the mercenary world, so infatuated with her. The phone was dialed, but Wan Xiao didn't say a word. He was very clear about Uncle Xiang's thoughts. When Lin Gu picked up the phone again, he still didn't say a word. He silently took out his dagger and prepared to record the message in the form of Sherlock Holmes code. However, there was no sound from the other side of the phone. Lin Ji's ears were almost pricked up, but he still didn't hear any sound. What the hell was this guy doing? Lin Gu was stunned, but he really didn't dare to be careless. Who knew what happened on Wan Zhao's side? Lin Gu didn't say a word and was ready to record the password at any time. However, a bird was disturbed by something and gave Lin Gu a fright. Uncle Xiang held the phone and didn't say a word. In the face of no response at all, he didn't know what was going on. Wan Zhao's suspended heart finally settled down. As long as Lin Gu made the slightest sound, he was dead meat. Fortunately, Lin Gu was reliable enough. He didn't say a word under the circumstances where he didn't get any response. A minute passed just like that. Uncle Xiang handed the phone to Wan Xiao. He shrugged his shoulders and signaled Wan Xiao to deal with it himself. Wan Xiao took the phone and scolded into the phone in a bad mood. Do you really think you're some kind of golden branch or jade leaf? Don't be so shameless. You didn't even say a word when I made a call. What's the meaning of this? Let me tell you, you're just a plaything in my eyes. Don't F*King think you're rare. When Lin Gu heard this, he felt his chrysanthemum tighten. What the hell was going on over there? It really made him feel like he was going to collapse. Then, the phone was hung up. Listening to the busy tone, Lin Gu spat. Wan Xiao shook his head angrily. Uncle Xiang, to be honest, I really didn't think that I would be infatuated with a woman. He, you're a young man. It's said that heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. Brother One-Eyed can see a woman as a plaything. That means you're a hero among heroes. Uncle Xiang patted Wan Zhao's shoulder. One-Eyed, it's not that I don't trust you. Don't take what happened just now to heart. I can understand, Wan Xiao said. If I were Uncle Xiang, I would be careful too. Chapter 1833. This made Wan Xiao break out in a cold sweat. He didn't expect that his phone call would almost expose himself and Lin Gu. It seemed that things were getting more and more dangerous. After a day of observation, Wan Xiao felt that something was wrong. Wan Xiao realized that Uncle Xiang was being too patient. He was 80% sure that Uncle Xiang was the one who broke into Vulture's email. When he led the one-eyed mercenary group to war, he had encountered difficulties in cracking the network. At that time, Uncle Xiang had arranged for a young man named Ajin to help him. Wan Xiao had been in Uncle Xiang's base for a day, but he hadn't seen Ajin. This made Wan Xiao a little nervous. If the secret in the email was obtained by Uncle Xiang, then it must have been Ajin who broke into the email. Now that he couldn't find Ajin in Uncle Xiang's base, it was very likely that he had been killed because the secret was too big. Although this was only Wan Zhao's conjecture, from the current situation, everything was already pretty close to the mark. Wan Xiao couldn't stay here any longer. If he did, Uncle Xiang would definitely think of a foolproof plan to deal with him. When that time came, he wouldn't be able to escape. Wan Xiao didn't expect to barge into such a dangerous place as soon as he left the country. He realized that he had to get in touch with Lin Gu as soon as possible and leave this place as soon as possible. He had to pass on his judgment and wait for Su Yun to arrive before making a decision and taking action. If he were to die here, everything would be over. Wan Xiao had already contacted Lin Gu and asked him to sneak in. Now he had to find a way to contact Lin Gu again and tell Lin Gu exactly how to cooperate with him. He had to seize this opportunity tonight. Otherwise, with Uncle Xiong's brain, he would definitely come up with a perfect plan tomorrow. By then, it would be too late for Wan Xiao to act. Since he had predicted the result, he had to act as soon as possible. If he delayed, he would only suffer the consequences. Uncle Xiong's attitude changed a little after sunset. There was no sumptuous dinner in the evening, only simple dishes. Although he invited Wan Xiao to dine with him, he didn't serve him any good wine. No one knew what Uncle Xiong was thinking, but since he did this, he must have his own reasons. After dinner, Uncle Xiong said to Wan Xiao lightly, "One-eyed, please don't take it to heart that we didn't entertain you properly. It's just that we have something very important to do tonight, so we can't stay with you for long. Rest well tonight and treat this place as your own home." Wan Xiao was startled. "Uncle Xiong, what are you doing tonight?" "Just a small matter," Uncle Xiong said indifferently. "It's just that it's related to some special circumstances, so I have to show up personally. He, I'm going to take most of my brothers out. If there's any emergency situation here, I hope that brother One-Eyed can lend a hand. Uncle Xiong, if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know." Wan Xiao suddenly realized that this might be a good opportunity for him to escape. "Why don't you leave this matter to me? I'll take some of my brothers out to help you settle this matter. It's also a greeting gift for disturbing you." Uncle Xiong laughed. "One-Eyed, oh One-Eyed, you're really treating me as an outsider. You're a guest. There's no reason for a guest to help you. Besides, this matter can only be solved by me. If you can really help me, I'll definitely ask you." "Uncle Xiong, I'm so sorry." Wan Xiao was a little disappointed that he had lost such a good opportunity. But thinking about it carefully, if Uncle Xiong took most of his men out, then he would have a chance here. Even if it was inconvenient for him to escape, he could contact Lin Gu and ask Lin Gu to sneak in and create chaos. He could take the opportunity to escape. No matter what, this was an opportunity. Uncle Xiong nodded and said confidently, "I'll leave my nest to you. This is really a big matter. Brother One-Eyed, you can see how much I trust you." "I won't let you down, Uncle Xiong." Wan Xiao nodded. While the two of them were talking, Ding Kai had already gathered most of his brothers and was ready to go. Once Uncle Xiong gave the order, he and his 3 tigers, as well as nearly 3/4 of his brothers, left the base. Judging from the situation, it was definitely not a small matter. Perhaps they were going to do something outside of their territory. Now, Uncle Xiong's base could be said to be an empty shell. Only 1/4 of the people were left, and none of them could really take responsibility. The only experienced leader, Clark, was still lying in bed. Wan Zhao's punch had given him a concussion. He would probably need to rest for a few days to recover. Another capable black dog was also sent out to do other tasks. Ding Kai, Jing Chu, and Tian Lu were also not left behind. Putting aside other questions, Wan Xiao really admired Uncle Xiong's courage on this point alone. He was really brave. However, this was definitely an opportunity for Wan Xiao. If everyone left, it would be easier for him to leave. Lin Gu would also be less exposed to danger. At this moment, Lin Gu was really not safe at all. He was moving stealthily according to Wan Zhao's instructions. He knew all the dangerous targets and could naturally avoid them. However, he did not expect that a large number of figures would appear on his path. Lin Gu was stunned. Other than the figures, there were also cars. It was as if they were sweeping through the place. What was Wan Xiao doing? Did he set himself up? Lin Gu could only think of one thing at this moment. Why did such a situation suddenly appear on his path? He was now at a low place. If he got up and fled, he would definitely be noticed by people in the distance. Even if he was dressed in camouflage, it was impossible to escape the eyes of so many people. Lin Gu knew very well that the further the moving target, the easier it was to be exposed. He was now lying on the grass. Because the grass in the forest was tall enough, as long as he did not move, he could hide himself very well. The most terrifying problem came. Lin Gu could not turn around to escape. If he turned around to escape, he did not know how many snipers would aim at him. This distance was definitely within shooting range. An excellent sniper would only need 2 to 3 seconds to aim and shoot. Lin Gu was confident that he could dodge one shot. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to dodge 2, 3, or even more sniper shots at the same time. However, if he did not escape and Lin Gu just lay there, the result would be even more terrifying. Because there were so many people and cars approaching him step by step. Once they passed by him, the consequences of Lin Gu being discovered would be even more terrifying. This was not a group of hooligans. If Lin Gu were to go berserk, he could take care of them in 3 to 5 minutes. These were all well-trained mercenaries. Moreover, they were not those useless mercenaries who only knew how to eat and wait for death. These were all elite soldiers. They were all baptized in the face of death in war. These people were definitely not easy to deal with. Once Lin Gu was discovered at close range, the possibility of him sacrificing himself would soar to 100%. Phew! This was really bad. Lin Gu had encountered many dangerous situations in his life. However, this was the first time he encountered such a dangerous situation. Lin Gu had no choice now. He could only gamble. He gambled that these people would not see him when they passed by him. Even though the chance of that happening was very low, it was still possible. This required Lin Gu to use extremely small movements to move to the path that the car was coming from. As long as he could successfully stay under the car, he would be covered by the engine and the car. Of course, if he did not find the right position, he would be crushed by the car. It was hard to say whether he would be crushed to death. However, if the people in the car were to be crushed by such a large obstacle, they would definitely notice. Moreover, Lin Gu could not make any big movements. He could only move like an ant to change his current position. Otherwise, he would be discovered. Lin Gu swore that this was definitely the most difficult 10 minutes of his life. Those people walked towards Lin Gu unhurriedly, while Lin Gu slowly moved his body horizontally, trying his best to aim at the bottom of the car in a straight line. Chapter 1834. The car and the mercenaries were getting closer and closer to Lin Gu. Lin Gu had goosebumps all over his body. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he was discovered. Would he be crushed to death by the car or shot to death by random gunfire? Anything was possible. Lin Gu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This was definitely the most unbearable period of his life. The sun had already set. In the open space of the forest, tall grass swayed in the wind as far as the eye could see. Lin Gu was leaning against the ground, listening to the approaching footsteps and the roar of the car engine. This was definitely the worst symphony he had ever heard in his life because his fate was right at the edge of a cliff. Once this symphony stopped, it would mean that he would face death. Finally, the car slowly drove over Lin Ji's head. The speed was so slow that it was almost no different from walking. The mercenaries on both sides of the car raised their heads and raised their guns. They didn't seem to notice that there was a dangerous intruder in the grassy area that the car drove over. Lin Gu tightly gripped the hilt of his dagger, which was covered in sweat. The moment the car's shadow covered his body, he felt a heavy weight lift off his heart. However, before Lin Gu could rejoice, the car suddenly stopped. As the engine died, a person shouted, and all the mercenaries stopped in their tracks. In an instant, Lin Ji's hair stood on end. His right hand that was gripping the dagger trembled. He was ready for a fierce battle at any time. The person in the car didn't say anything. The mercenaries didn't say anything either. Everyone was facing the car. Lin Gu was under the car. He could clearly see the pairs of strong and powerful legs and the advanced weapons in their hands. There was really no way to fight. Lin Gu could see hundreds of legs at a glance. What could he use to fight? If he wanted to die, he had to take care of the person in the car before he died. That way, his life wouldn't be in vain. At least, he had to take care of the leader first. Even if he didn't have a good ending, he had to take care of the other party. But how was he going to take control of the leader in the car in the first place? Other than attacking from under the car, Lin Gu really couldn't think of a better way. However, if he knew that the leader in the car was surrounded by 3 experts, even if he could suddenly attack, he wouldn't be able to get the result he wanted. Lin Gu would definitely give up on this idea. I have already explained the mission very clearly. The leader in the car said, "Everyone can see what I do. As long as everyone doesn't let me down, I will definitely let everyone down. There will definitely be difficulties. Catching one or a few people in such a big forest is really no different from finding a needle in a haystack. However, I still hope that everyone will be alert. Anyone who discovers the target, immediately release a signal flare. As long as everyone sees the signal flare, surround the target and lock it down. I will reward you according to your contribution." All the mercenaries listened very seriously. Everyone's expression was serious. Such a big matter obviously wasn't that simple. But the more difficult it was, the more benefits they could get. I will remind all of you again. Being greedy will only get you killed. We can't judge the strength of the other party, and we can't judge the number of people. Therefore, the signal flare must be your first choice. Don't think that you can take care of everything. If you don't release the signal flare because of your greed, even if anyone completes the mission, I will still only punish you and not reward you. These words were ruthless enough. All the mercenaries shouted that they understood. This really made Lin Ji's beating heart almost stop. It seemed that these people didn't stop because they found him. This made Lin Gu breathe a sigh of relief. But a more serious problem came. Who were these people trying to kill? 1. How many? Were they talking about him? Lin Gu couldn't judge. If these people were trying to catch him, then wouldn't he be like a lamb entering a wolf's den? The problem was that these wolves could King release the signal flare. The moment they met, they would use the big move, summon a pack of wolves. Let alone Lin Gu, who was a lamb. Even if Lin Gu was a dinosaur, he might be bitten to death by this pack of wolves. Lin Gu didn't have any confidence in his heart. Even if he wasn't the target, he wouldn't be able to explain himself in this kind of environment. He would die without a doubt. Phew, today was destined to be Lin Ji's most unforgettable day. If a primary school student could have his experience, then writing an essay like, "My Most Unforgettable Day," wouldn't be difficult to write. After the lecture, all the mercenaries dispersed. The car also started again. 2 people jumped out of the car and followed the mercenaries into the forest. This large grassland area suddenly became a lot more desolate. The car didn't drive as slowly as before and directly left. Although the smell of the exhaust wasn't pleasant, Lin Gu still took a few deep breaths. He wanted to keep his mind absolutely clear. He wanted to clearly tell himself that he must be focused. He must be focused. He must be focused. Now that he had entered the red alert area, he couldn't have any mishaps. At this point, there was no way back. Lin Gu could only choose to keep moving forward, deeper and deeper. Only by contacting Wen Xiao could he possibly escape the danger. After all, in this kind of place, a living guide and super helper like Wen Xiao was absolutely indispensable. Lin Gu was in such a dangerous place. He almost crawled through this grassland area. He had no other choice but to sneak to the coordinates Wen Xiao gave him. This was the only route he could take. The other routes were all monitored. It was normal that there were no hidden snipers in this place because this grassland area was too vast. No one would be stupid enough to sneak in here. However, Lin Gu really did choose this place to sneak in. It wasn't because he was stupid, but because he was skilled and daring. In the following period of time, Lin Gu even became very careful with his breathing. Ever since Uncle Xiong left, Wen Zhao's heart had been beating violently. Based on the situation and layout of the base, he had already determined the room with the communication signal monitoring device. If he wanted to contact Lin Gu, he had to first enter the room and turn off the device. He was sure that Uncle Xiong was carrying a device that was connected to the communication signal monitoring device. As long as he made a call, it would be equivalent to notifying Uncle Xiong. Uncle Xiong only needed to give an order, and a quarter of the mercenaries in the base would immediately surround him. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. After all, it was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. They were all mercenaries who had experienced the baptism of war, and they were all on high alert. No matter how powerful Wen Xiao was, it was impossible for him to overturn the situation here alone. The sky gradually darkened. Wen Xiao had been observing the situation of the patrolling team outside the window. He had to remember clearly every few minutes. Also, the mercenaries standing guard on the tower would make a small circle around the tower every 10 seconds. Wen Xiao had to calculate all of this. After figuring out the time, Wen Xiao could directly jump out of the window without anyone noticing the abnormality in his room. He used his fastest speed to hide under a load-bearing wooden pillar. After the mercenaries on the tower looked away, he quickly went to the room with the communication signal monitoring device and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" The moment the mercenary inside opened the door, Wen Xiao directly punched him in the chin. The mercenary's vision turned black and he fell to the ground. There was only one person in the room. This was probably Uncle Xiang's biggest mistake. Wen Xiao dragged the man into the room and closed the door. Then, he pulled the fainted man onto a chair, making it look like he was just sleeping. Although the communication signal monitoring device wasn't complicated, Wen Xiao still carefully studied it before turning off the signal monitoring function step by step. After everything was done, Wen Xiao's head was already covered in sweat. However, this was just the beginning. Wen Xiao walked to the door and gently opened it. After looking outside and making sure that there was nothing out of the ordinary, he quickly took out his phone and dialed Lin Ji's number. Chapter 1835. Lin Gu was in such a dangerous situation. Even the vibration of his phone was enough to make him break out in a cold sweat. If he hadn't relied on the insects and spiders to replenish his energy, he would have been dead by now. Stress would overdraft a person's mental strength, and the energy source for mental strength was the most basic physical ability. Lin Gu knew that he was right to grit his teeth and eat those disgusting things. He really couldn't be picky about survival in the wild. Staying alive was more important than anything else. Being able to solve this big problem was more important than anything else. After picking up the phone, Lin Gu still didn't say anything. He couldn't tell what was wrong with Wen Xiao. That strange phone call from before had already confused him. And this time, Lin Gu still didn't dare to imagine what was going on the other end of the phone. Finally, after a minute of silence, Wen Xiao concluded that it was Lin Gu who picked up the phone. He directly said, "I'm in trouble. I've basically determined that Uncle Xiang is the one who cracked Vulture's email. He might know all the secrets. I'm now in his base. I need your support. Please answer if you copy." "You dare to talk in someone else's base?" Lin Gu whispered in surprise. But after speaking, he regretted it a little. What if there was someone else beside Wen Xiao? What if someone forced him to make this call? Thinking about his lack of consideration, Lin Gu was very upset. "I've already turned off the communication signal monitor. Uncle Xiang also took most of the people out to do something important. Right now, there are less than 20 people in the base other than me. I need you to create chaos and create a diversion to give me enough space to escape," Wen Xiao said. Lin Gu heard and cursed. "You're using me as bait." Anyway, he had already spoken. If Wen Xiao was being controlled by someone else, then that person already knew about his existence. Who cares? There was no turning back now. "Without outside help, I really can't escape successfully," Wen Xiao said. "I'm worried that I'll be exposed tonight. By then, I won't be able to escape even if I want to. I'm familiar with this place. I have to escape. When boss arrives, I'll be able to give him the correct guidance and solve this problem." Wen Zhao's words made sense. Lin Gu gritted his teeth and decided to go all out. After all, his mission was to assist Wen Xiao. This was a mission given to him by Su Yun. Regardless of whether he was willing to accept it or not, this mission was something he had to complete. "Then tell me what I should do now." Lin Gu said, "I'm getting closer to the target point. I'm already very close." When you discovered the base, the first thing you noticed was the people on the tower. Then, There was a 3-man patrol team. These are all dangerous. Wen Xiao said, it would be best if you could cause some trouble in the southeast side of the base. I'm currently in the northwest side. I don't dare to act rashly because I can't tell if the people on the tower can see me from where I am. I need you to cause some trouble and attract their attention. Then, I'll escape from the northwest side. You'll meet me there. Lin Gu pondered for a moment, half believing and half doubting. Wen Xiao, your arrangement is indeed quite good, but you'd better listen carefully. If you're playing with me, then you've really found the wrong person. If you dare to betray me and work with them to deal with me, I'll drag you down with me as a scapegoat. Wen Xiao sighed softly. You still have the mood to doubt me at a time like this? We need the most basic trust to survive this disaster. I'm in a very dangerous situation right now. Can you stop being so suspicious? Your situation is dangerous? You only know that you're in danger. Have you ever thought that my situation is also very dangerous? Lin Gu glared at him and said, Do you know how many mercenaries passed by me just now? Densely packed. A group. I was lying in the grass and was almost discovered and turned into a dice. If I wasn't smart enough to crawl in the path of the car ahead of time and have the chance to hide under the car, you'd be talking to a ghost right now. Wen Xiao was shocked. Was it a Land Rover? How could I be in the mood to look at a car? I didn't even dare to raise my head up and down. Lin Gu said unhappily, They said they were going to catch someone and do a carpet search to catch someone. Are they going to catch me or not? God knows. Wen Xiao frowned. Those people must be Uncle Xiong's men because this was Uncle Xiong's territory. No other mercenary group would dare to make such a big fuss in Uncle Xiong's territory. Uncle Xiong wanted to catch Lin Gu? How could that be? He couldn't possibly know about Lin Ge's existence. When he took his phone and was suspicious, he did call Lin Gu, but Lin Gu didn't say a word. Uncle Xiong had no reason to suspect him. There was no reason for him to make such a judgment. Just because of a suspicion, he brought so many people to do a carpet search? No, that was impossible. Wen Xiao knew very well that unless Uncle Xiong was sure that there was someone outside working with him, he wouldn't do such a thing. Otherwise, there would be other dangers if he caught someone else. You must be careful. Don't be discovered. Come and find me immediately. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. This place is too dangerous. Wen Xiao said, If you can guarantee your safety, come as fast as you can. I'll wait for you. Lin Gu hung up the phone and carefully observed his surroundings. If he wanted to guarantee his safety, he had to be careful. He couldn't be fast. If he wanted to be fast, he had to risk his life. Of course, Lin Gu wouldn't risk his life. No matter how dangerous Wen Xiao's place was, it wasn't as dangerous as his situation. Just like that, Lin Gu walked for more than 2 hours in just a few kilometers of distance. He finally arrived at the coordinates that Wen Xiao told him. He also saw the mercenaries' secret base. Obviously, this base wasn't as domineering as Lin Gu imagined. It was very simple. However, although a sparrow was small, it had all the essentials. Lin Gu immediately noticed the mercenaries on the tower. Now that the sky was completely dark, it was still very advantageous for him. Lin Gu lurked in the dark for half an hour. He calculated the frequency of the patrol team's appearance and the frequency of the mercenaries on the tower's observation. Lin Gu thought that this was a good opportunity. Lin Gu ignited a flame and then used a few seconds to escape tens of meters away. Immediately after, the mercenaries on the tower noticed the flame. They immediately raised their guns and aimed, shouting to remind their brothers in the base. The patrol team also arrived at the first moment. They all lay down and aimed. Before confirming the situation, no one dared to act rashly. Lin Gu waiting for the sound of an explosion. In order to create chaos, he picked up a few bullets when he passed by this place. After some processing by Lin Gu, the gunpowder was enough to create a certain explosive effect. Just as the mercenaries were about to realize that this was a trap, the fire exploded. Bang! This sound directly raised everyone's hearts to their throats. 222. A burst of bullets. When someone opened fire, everyone thought that they had found the target and began suppressing it with fire. Immediately after, another explosion sounded, directly raising the one-sided battle to a climax. Lin Gu quickly rushed to the northwest of the base under the protection of the darkness. Of course, he was also very careful because he could not completely trust Wen Xiao. The moment the first explosion sounded, Wen Xiao rushed out of the communication signal monitoring room and quickly fled to the northwest of the base. At this time, all the mercenaries were transferred to the southeast. No one realized that Wen Xiao had escaped. After escaping from the base, Wen Xiao sneaked into the darkness. When he saw Lin Ji's figure appear, he quickly rushed forward to meet up with him. This gave Lin Gu a fright and he almost stabbed him a few times. Well done. Wen Xiao threw a sentence to Lin Gu. Follow me closely. We have to leave this place before Uncle Xiong's troops arrive. Otherwise, no one will be able to leave. Their reaction speed will be very fast. We have to race against time. You really don't want to let me take a breather? Lin Gu smiled bitterly. His mind had been tense all this time. This was too tiring. He really wanted to rest. Chapter 1836. If Uncle Xiong's men react, the two of us will be doomed, Wen Xiao said. I know what you're thinking, but it's still dangerous for the two of us to deal with the rest of them. We need to wait for the boss's support. Only then will we have a chance. Lin Gu grinned. They don't have a leader now. It's such a good opportunity to reduce their strength. If we don't seize it, wouldn't it be a pity? It won't be too late to leave after we finish this job, right? Wen Xiao shook his head and said firmly, What if it's too late? The information is in our hands. We have to ensure our safety. The information is in your hands. You just have to bring it out. Lin Gu said, Since I spent so much effort to come here, it would be a waste if I don't make up for it. If you want to leave, you can leave. I'll stay and play with these trash. Lin Ji's confidence was not baseless. A small trick was enough to lure this group of people away. Obviously, most of these people did not know what it meant to use their brains. This was definitely a chance for Lin Gu to strike at his opponents. Moreover, he was hungry and wanted to get some food to fill his stomach. Wen Xiao wanted to say something, but Lin Gu had already entered the enemy's base. Wen Xiao was not careful and did not stop him. He was annoyed. He did not dare to shout for fear of startling the others. But he could not leave. This kind of dragon's pool and tiger's den was not something a person could escape easily. What was even more frightening was that once the mercenaries reacted and realized that he had left, they would definitely be alerted. By then, even if Lin Gu had great abilities, he would not be able to escape. This guy! What a hindrance! Wen Xiao was quite speechless. He had no organization and discipline at all. Wen Xiao was a soldier who paid attention to organization and discipline, whether it was in the Dragon Fury team or later when he led the one-eyed mercenary group in Southeast Asia. There was a world of difference between him and Lin Gu. Lin Gu wasn't a soldier, so he didn't have any concept of organization and discipline. If someone he admired ordered him to do something, he would definitely obey. But if someone else wanted him to do something, he would really depend on his mood. Right now, Lin Gu didn't want to listen to Wen Xiao's arrangements. Moreover, he knew that most of the people in the base had left. Of course, he didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. He was used to being alone in all his previous missions, so even if Wen Xiao didn't help him, he didn't think it was a big deal. Wen Xiao was so angry that he really wanted to abandon Lin Gu, but he really couldn't do it. No matter what, Lin Gu came here to save him. Now that Lin Gu was in danger, if he just left without a care, it would really be too disloyal. Damn it! Wen Xiao cursed, but he didn't leave. Instead, he followed closely behind Lin Gu and returned to the base. He really didn't know if his decision was right or not. He clearly wanted Lin Gu to help him escape this place, but now, because of Lin Ji's impulse, both of them were trapped inside. Lin Gu really didn't believe that a group of brainless mercenaries could trap him. When he sneaked into Uncle Xiang's base, those people were still nervous in the southeast. He immediately went to the kitchen and got something to eat. This was the main thing he needed to do. He didn't want to digest a stomach full of worms. When Wen Xiao returned, those mercenaries who were attracted to the southeast corner realized that something was wrong. They also noticed that there was no one there at all. They began to worry about the base and began to prepare to return to observe the situation. Wen Xiao didn't have time to do anything else. He could only return to his room. He was sure that someone would come to his room immediately. Just as Wen Xiao expected, when he hurried back to his room, the mercenaries who rushed back to the base to observe the situation had already surrounded his room. It was obvious that Uncle Xiang didn't trust him. He must have given some instructions, so the mercenaries guarding the base had such a unified reaction. Life was like a play, and it all depended on one's acting skills. When two mercenaries entered Wen Zhao's room with guns, Wen Zhao's reaction was very agitated. He had already hidden behind the door. The first thing he did was to control the first person who entered his room. He directly grabbed the weapon in his hand and aimed it at the people at the door. The atmosphere at the scene became tense. But Wen Xiao was relaxed. When he saw that everyone was nervous, he put down the person in his hand and raised his hands to show that he didn't want to attack. "We're on the same side, we're on the same side." Only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Wen Xiao was still nervous. He asked, "What happened just now?" "We mean no harm." The guy who was controlled by Wen Xiao rubbed his red neck and said, "You're Uncle Xiang's guest. We're just worried about you. There was a small situation outside just now, and we haven't figured out the cause yet. So before we figure out the cause, our most important task is to ensure your safety." These words were too hypocritical. If they didn't mean any harm, why would all their guns be aimed at Wen Xiao when he attacked? If they were really worried about his safety and their most important task was to protect him, they should have come to his room the moment something happened. They shouldn't have gathered in the southeast and surrounded his room only after they sensed something was wrong. Although these words were very fake, Wen Xiao wouldn't expose them. However, he was helpless now. With so many people targeting him, how could he escape? Perhaps these guys still couldn't figure out the reason, and no one would run to the signal monitoring room to check on the situation of the person inside. But once Uncle Xiang came back, things wouldn't be so simple. It was impossible that Uncle Xiang couldn't figure out the reason. How could there be a sudden fire and explosion outside Uncle Xiang's base? Someone must be behind it. Wen Xiao was the only outsider in the entire base. Who else could they suspect? In addition, the person in the communication signal monitoring room had already been knocked unconscious. The only suspicious person who would make a move on him was Wen Xiao. No matter what, Wen Xiao would be the first person to be suspected. In the dead of the night, Uncle Xiang would be informed of the explosion and fire immediately. Now that there was a problem, Uncle Xiang wouldn't need anyone to inform him. He would rush back immediately. "It's over." Wen Xiao was very upset. He really didn't understand what Lin Gu was thinking. He also regretted being stupid enough to come back with him. If he knew that he would be completely surrounded, he would have just left Lin Gu here alone. Who asked him to be so arrogant? "I don't think I need your protection. You should figure out what's going on." Wen Xiao said, "I'm Uncle Xiang's friend. I have an obligation to help you if you need it. We just need you to stay here safely." The other person's answer was also very clear. He didn't give Wen Xiao a chance to find an excuse. "But I remember Uncle Xiang said that if there's a problem in the base, I should help him." Wen Zhao's question was also very firm. "Are you going to go against Uncle Xiang's wishes?" Facing Wen Xiao, the burly mercenary was speechless for a moment. Wen Xiao continued to guide him. "This is Uncle Xiang's territory. Who do you think dares to cause trouble in Uncle Xiang's territory alone? Uncle Xiang took so many brothers out. The problem in the southeast just now might be an opportunity for someone to use this opportunity to set you up. If you can't prevent a big mess from happening, how can you face Uncle Xiang? After all, the leader of the one-eyed mercenary group, was very famous in the Southeast Asian mercenary circle. Everyone was very clear about his strength and ability. Now that he asked these questions, it was really possible that they were aware of it. At this time, no one cared about the kitchen at all. Lin Guo was also very disappointed in the kitchen because the meal was really too ordinary. Although there were meat, eggs, and vegetables, wasn't it too monotonous? There was no variety at all. Lin Guo, who was hungry, didn't care so much. He didn't want to go out later and eat those big spiders or ants to satisfy his hunger. He wanted to eat until he was full. After he left their territory, he would catch a wild rabbit and roast it. If he ate a big reptile, he would really vomit. Chapter 1837. And on such an extremely urgent night, Su Yun also led the brothers of the Dragon's Fury Special Forces to parachute into the military airport of the Border Police Brigade. In order to save time, the sharp-tongued but soft-hearted Wan Guangxiao specially approved a special plane to send Su Yun and the others directly from Yanjing to the border area of the Southern Kingdom. For the sake of Wan Guangxiao's support, Su Yun and the brothers of the Dragon Fury team couldn't let the old man down. They were bound to strangle the Southeast Asian mercenary group that uncovered the secret of Guagua's identity and directly reduced the risk to the minimum. The Border Defense Police Brigade only received the notice to welcome them and send them to the borderline. The other things were under the command of Su Yun, and the significance of their border mission was extraordinary. To a certain extent, it was somewhat unprincipled. After all, they were fighting outside the border, and the opponent was a mercenary group that didn't dare to easily provoke Hua Xia's border. Although that area was a place that no Southeast Asian country was willing to manage, it wasn't Hua Xia's land. Therefore, their border mission didn't represent the country. It was completely under the personal leadership of Su Yun. All the symbols of the country on their combat uniforms would be removed, and everything they did had nothing to do with the country. Of course, they had to carry these advanced weapons and equipment with them. It was definitely not a smart choice to fight with well-equipped mercenaries bare-handed. In addition to excellent equipment and abundant ammunition, once they left the border, they wouldn't receive any assistance or long-range help. The Border Defense Police Brigade was quite respectful and admiring of Su Yun and the other Special Forces members. With their cooperation, Su Yun led the 6 brothers of Dragon's Fury overnight to the border coordinates that Lin Guo had informed him of. The captain of the Border Defense Police Brigade was very surprised when he learned of the coordinates. He immediately reminded Su Yun, "This border crossing point is a very dangerous minefield. Even desperate drug traffickers almost won't cross the border in this area. The mortality rate is too high. Even if there's no one around, it will cause an explosion for some special reason. This minefield is the no man's land in the entire border area. Then this place could really be considered a no man's land within a no man's land." Who knew why Wen Xiao and Lin Guo would choose such a place to exit the border? However, Su Yun and Lin Guo had an agreement. He needed to find the signals and imprints left behind by Lin Guo to make a temporary judgment. They had an agreement before that they couldn't casually contact each other because no one knew the other's situation. If they rashly contacted each other, it was very likely that the originally hidden party would be exposed, bringing unnecessary danger to their own people. For this reason, Su Yun had to lead Dragon's Fury's brothers through this minefield. Fortunately, the brothers who came with him were not afraid of trouble. Some of them were even more excited when there was danger. "Isn't it just a minefield? We've been through too many minefields in our lives." Chen Feng grinned. "Aren't my legs fine now?" As long as he was careful, he would be able to get through it. "Wan Xiao and Lin Guo are fine. How can this be a problem for us?" "Be humble," Han Zhan said. "Wen Xiao has lived in Southeast Asia for so long. He may have more experience in this area than us. Since the captain reminded us, it means that this place is quite dangerous. Don't be too arrogant. It's easy to get into trouble." Qian Feng stuck out his tongue, but he was not convinced and looked at Hua Xiaolu and the others, trying to get their support. However, Hua Xiaolu pretended not to see anything and did not respond to Qian Feng. Gong Sun Lang only secretly gave a thumbs up to show his support for Qian Feng. Qian Feng and Bai Songguang were originally more obedient, and they would not support Qian Feng's troublesome idea. Forget it, I'll be careful behind you. Qian Feng waved his hand. Your life is not so worthless. If you die in a minefield, it will be too much of a loss for you. Su Yun smiled and patted Qian Feng's shoulder. It was good to be confident, but this confidence should not become arrogance. It's better to be careful. Your brother Black Dragon's warning is not wrong. Qian Feng nodded modestly. Yes, I will not let brother Black Dragon down. Since we have brought you to the place, the rest is up to you. The captain of the border police force saluted. I wish you a safe journey. Be careful when you leave the border. Those mercenaries are really not simple. Thank you for your concern. Su Yun also saluted back. We will not disappoint you. After the border police force retreated, Su Yun and the others began to prepare to cross the minefield. They matched the time with each other and checked their weapons to see if there were any problems. With a wave of Su Yun's hand, the 7 people entered the minefield in a battle formation. Su Yun and Han Zhan took the lead. The 2 of them were more mature, and they did things more cautiously and carefully. Although the guys behind them were no longer the young boys they were in the past, Su Yun and Han Zhan were still used to protecting them behind as brothers when they encountered such dangerous situations. These were all invisible love and care. The few little brothers who were often taken care of were really grateful for Su Yun and Han Zhan's actions from the bottom of their hearts. Under the night sky, a few black shadows were like ghosts. Although it was a minefield, their speed was not slow at all. Su Yun knew very well what time meant. In order to buy time for them, the chief even arranged for a plane to be airdropped directly to the border area. If they wasted time, it would be really shameful. As it turned out, the concept of time did ensure that they did not fall into a disadvantage in the following confrontation. Because at this time, the fire and explosion in the base had disturbed Uncle Xiang. Uncle Xiang immediately ordered everyone to retreat and surround his base from the outside. Today, he mobilized everyone. On the surface, it was to conduct a large-scale search to see if there were any people around the base who were cooperating with Wen Xiao. In fact, he wanted Wen Xiao to lead the people who were cooperating with him inside the base so that he could catch a turtle in a jar. Some people could not understand. When Uncle Xiang used Wen Xiao's phone to call Lin Ge did not speak at all. Why was Uncle Xiang so sure that Wen Xiao must have external help? It was very simple. Although Lin Ge did not speak, a kind of bird in the jungle betrayed Lin Ge. At that time, a flock of birds was disturbed by something and flew up. A few of them were frightened and even let out a bird cry. This kind of bird cry was very special. Only a kind of bird in the jungles of Southeast Asia could make this kind of sound. This kind of bird did not exist in the mainland of Huaxia. Therefore, Uncle Xiang concluded that the person on the other end of the phone was within his sphere of influence. However, an old fox was an old fox after all. He was able to realize the problem at the first moment and was able to control his actions at the first moment. Uncle Xiang pretended that nothing had happened and pretended that he had been fooled. This was to encourage Wen Xiao to be bolder in contacting his outsider and then give him this opportunity to catch a turtle in a jar. In this battle of wits and courage, Wen Xiao was still a little inexperienced. And Lin Ge, who had never dealt with Uncle Xiang, naturally underestimated him. He did not think that he had been lured into a big trap step by step. At this moment, Lin Ge was still replenishing his food and water, preparing for the upcoming escape and fierce battle. The mercenaries led by Uncle Xiang had already surrounded his base and were waiting to catch Wen Xiao and his outsider in one fell swoop. Uncle Xiang dared to swagger back to the base because he was certain that Wen Xiao and his outsider must be trapped in the base at this moment. Of course, there was also the possibility that they had all escaped. When Uncle Xiang saw that his brothers who stayed behind to guard the base were closely watching Wen Xiao, he knew that none of them could escape. Tonight's winner could only be him. One Eye, sorry to have frightened you. Uncle Xiang jumped out of the car and walked straight to Wen Xiao. Wen Xiao was already panicking. Uncle Xiang came back too quickly and too suddenly. He had already realized a problem. Everything that happened today could be a trap, and they had already stepped into this trap. At this point, when Xiao really did not have the power to change anything, he could only hope that Lin Ge could escape with his super strong personal ability. If he had to die, only he would die. He did not want everyone to die here. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.